I feel like I messed up. I'm just saying, why are you touching me? And we've seen, I don't know, it was recently that Davido slapped somebody's chest because he was, so I don't know, for now that I feel like when people are interacting with each other and there's like physical contact, I'm always nervous that something might happen or they might not like being touched in that way or
if I'm
something.
Wrong. You listen to trying to say it was a privilege for Burna Boy meeting with Kanye West. Is that what we're trying to say?
I think it's an honor, yes, because you're
vice versa.
No. You used privilege. She used honor.
Yeah.
Honor, okay, honor, yes, because like it's vice versa. Burna Boy is also an artist of repute in Africa.
My gosh, please, you cannot like let's be real.
That's the point. Let's not equate them.
Because this lullaby, all in this together tune is not realistic. This is somebody that
paved the way for me too.
This is somebody that is internationally accredited.
That is how he feels.
And I also feel like Kanye West is bigger than Burna Boy.
Of course. Are you kidding me?
I don't.
Do you think that Kanye West, that Burna Boy can pull the same crowd Kanye West can?
Come again.
Do you think that Burna Boy can pull the same crowd that Kanye West can?
Where?
Anywhere.
Okay, so let's forget about where. Can Burna Boy hold a constant Sunday service with that crowd?
That is not his thing. That is not what he wants to do.
Can he pull a crowd, any crowd?
It doesn't have to be
in the same capacity as Kanye West? Are you kidding me?
No, I don't want to compare
or streams or
I'm just
success
saying, what I'm saying now, based on this, they are meeting. Burna met Kanye, Kanye met Burna.
Case closed, right?
That's it.
Okay, cool.
But I don't want to start drawing lines
Kanye
of comparison, like Kanye is greater, Burna is lesser.
Okay.
No.
Okay. But the facts will keep staring you at the face, whether you like it or not. So moving on to...
You don't like your own. That's your problem.
He's our own. He's a
Tiwa.
Kanye is a Tiwa from the history of history. Let's not forget that these people come from here.
I love Kanye too. That's one of the artists I hold in high repute. Kanye is...
You've made your point,
Okay,
Benny.
thank you very much.
Yeah. So Post Malone admits difficulty in seeking help for mental health struggles. In an interview, he admits that reasons behind him getting face tattoos were likely to come from a place of insecurity. He's working on seeking professional help for his mental health struggles after realizing his lifelong battle with depression could lead him to an early grave. He reveals he has experienced periods of depression since he was a kid, even though at the time they didn't appear to be connected to any particular occurrence in his life.
I gotta give you a Post Malone, right? Not everybody can come up openly to talk about their mental health and depression issues. And many times,
not just talking about it, also admitting that he expresses in his heart, and that he's cool with that, but he's not cool with sitting with someone face to face to deal with the issue.
And not everybody's going to come out and admit they're also insecure. So I think it's a step to recovery for me. And every time I see Post Malone, I have some butter. Like, there was this day I was in a club. I mean, there were loads of thousands of dollars that was changed, and it was just passing money around people. You could just tell he was stone cold. The one was looking and like, oh, we're not going to wake up one day and find out that the sad news that this guy is gone. And now that he's admitting and, that he has these issues, I think help should start reaching out to him. Not everybody is
He's also reaching out for help.
To say, I'm insecure. And most of the things I do come from my personal insecurities. People don't even admit the fact that they have insecurity in the first place. So to me, I feel it's a huge step to his recovery. And whatever it is he's dealing with, his childhood will be revisited. They need to revisit his childhood. Many things went wrong in his childhood that probably he was not even privy to.
Well, I mean, I don't really think so, because from this particular incident, at least in his own words, he was even saying that there is no occurrence to why he's like that.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it a lot of the times. Actually,
because I say this, right? Let me land. I say this to say, right? There was a health situation that was traced down to kids who grew up in a home where parents were always in physical combat with each other, and their inability to express themselves.
I understand that, Benny, but it's not every single time that depression is caused by something.
No, I'm not saying it's
so. And that's what I'm saying, that let's not turn that story into his. From his words, he is saying that he's just always been like that. And we've talked a lot on this show about not understanding suicide
depression.
Because some people are just predisposed by DNA, not by an effect or an outside occurrence that they're reacting to. By DNA, they are just more clean. You even find it like an hereditary.
Clinical depression?
Yes, a hereditary thing. You find somebody who you tell, like, there's a lot of celebrities that I can't remember anyone now that would say, my mother had it. my mother was depressed. And it's different lives, different stories, different issues. You can say this one, the parents were beating each other. The other child, nothing was happening, but they still had it. So there is people who are just born to be clinically lean towards
depression. But you know, we've also established on this table that depression or mental health issues as a whole is not, it's something almost no one has fully understood.
Yeah.
So it is a big deal. You still wonder why a person like a Post Malone that comes from a fairly nice family, normal family, decent, would tell you this has been going on for a very long time, that it's not just now. He's always felt insecure. He's always felt like something was wrong, that he, like he was the black sheep, you know. So it's something I don't think anyone can fully understand. What we can actually do is just encourage them to get help and also try to understand. It's not, we shouldn't always try to relate an occurrence to whatever a person is feeling, because you know, we've also talked about the fact that even people you think they are rich and have everything, and others will say, why are you even depressed? You're good, your life is fine. But it doesn't work like that. They have everything, but they're still swimming in that whatever chemical that is going on in the head, right? So it's not just about
calling himself ugly. He had a tattoo to his face because he didn't
wants to look better.
But that's a deep thing.
Yeah,
you know?
it is.
I hope it gets better. I appreciate the vulnerability. I think for me, getting vulnerability from men is always refreshing, because I don't see that very often. Men just come, especially gangster men. You know, there's men that are a lot more metrosexual, and this person is kind of gangster, and him coming out to really express this much vulnerability is so healthy and so needed, and such a breath of fresh air for this 2020, especially because 2020 has been stressful.
On social conditioning, because they taught men to
yes, I'm glad that he's getting out of that, and I really hope he gets that help, because especially from someone like Demi Lovato that we've seen over the years facing this thing non-stop, it is a life journey, and it's not going to get there tomorrow or once. Or he might have to deal with it for the rest of his life, and I hope he takes cues from people like Ed Sheeran. I know Ed Sheeran has been one person who has been actively taking actions. He lives far away. He buys the houses around him. He does everything he needs to do to protect his mental state.
Space, yeah. All right, it's time for a quick break, but when we return, I have a feeling we have more mental health issues to discuss. We'll be right back.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Cross Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Our conversation on One-on-One today is with Dr. Charles Omole, a trainer and strategist to businesses and governments across Europe, Middle East and Africa.
To get into the reins of leadership, it won't be given to us. We've got to go and get it.
How do we begin to change the narrative when it comes to leadership in this country?
Well, that's a very excellent question. It is true there is a leadership crisis, but it's not just a Nigerian problem. It's an African problem. The trajectory of all African countries have largely been the same, which is downwards, in the last 30, 40 years. These are people who have not managed two people in their life, some of them, and they want to be president of a 200 million, for them to even have the audacity that, because the Constitution says you have the right to, doesn't mean you should.
Premieres this Friday at 12:30 p.m. with a repeat broadcast on Sunday at 9:30 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Welcome back. This is still Tea Time on Plus TV Africa. Olimos pushes for social media change in the wake of Caroline Flake's suicide. She's not allowed to put out... Caroline's suicide. He says people should be accountable for what they say online. I like
social media trolls. You know, again, it's...
But can we solve that, really?
You can't. There's nothing you can do about it, except we're going to say the entire social media
and it's trying to put the responsibility on,
you know,
the owners of this platform, like, you know their names, Mark, Jack, blah, 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 but can they really stop it?
Yeah. He needs to understand something, that when something bad happens to someone, like when you lose someone, and I've experienced that so many times, and I was saying down in the office newsroom that this week a lot of people have been dying, and I haven't necessarily felt bad this week, even though that I know a lot of people have died, and that's just because they haven't affected my space. But last 2 weeks I had a friend that died and I couldn't even like function properly. And I think that's what you need to also understand with him, is that this person was special to you, but it's not special to everyone.
Yeah.
And not everyone is going to carry your matter that delicately. Like, you cannot assume for someone, even if I was close to the person, how I would react to her mourning will be very different from yours. So it's from a good place, and I understand it, but it's very unrealistic.
You know, I think, I just want to take it from the point that people should be accountable for what it is you say to people on social media.
Who's holding them accountable, though?
And how many can you hold accountable?
Then again, you owe yourself the duty to safeguard yourself also. I don't do the blogs. I don't. You will never catch me on the blog, because you have, most of the time, you have more than half the people that don't know you, who don't have any personal relations with you. They just want to say stuff. I mean, data is so cheap. Anybody can afford it. Any dumbo out there can afford it. And as long as they can just put their fingers to their keyboard.
I knew you were going to...
They're not usually poor people.
I didn't say poor people are not dumbos. I'm saying
data is cheap, and you know,
anybody can afford data. You can afford data, 15-hour data, 100-hour data.
Well, you know, another thing is that also on social media, you find that people actually have second accounts. I've noticed that thing a lot. And then they go to these like second accounts. I've seen that it's like funny memes. And then you can't see, they have like maybe 40 following, 41 followers, like it's not really an active account. And then they say everything that they need to say. That is what the platform is built for. I don't know how you can cipher out trolls.
You can't end trolling. It's like saying you want to put a stop to bullying. As long as the world remains, there will always be bullies.
But regardless, I think we should also be able to tell people, at least start from the community we have now, of people watching, to say, mind what you say to people online. Because you think it's just, you're trying to be savage, that's the word, right? Your savageness can cause someone to take his or her life wherever they are.
But you also just said it now. Who's going to hold them accountable?
But I think that's what Olimos is trying to push out. That even if it's an unrealistic thing, you can still put that message out there. That guys, like, yes, I couldn't relate to her death or a lot of other people who have died. But you're a human being, and you know how it feels like to lose someone. So just have some empathy. And that message might not have a domino effect that touches everybody's lives, but it could touch one or two people. I mean, for me, I haven't really talked about it, but it kind of reminded me that as I'm going on social media, not for her particularly, but it was a reminder, like, just tread carefully.
But
and
if
maybe
everyone starts treading carefully on social media, what would it look like?
I think it will be fine.
Social media for social good. I mean, you mustn't be.
I don't think it would be boring.
I think it's just about the world and the life.
You don't have to be you don't have to be toxic trolls for social media to be fun. Nah,
you have to be creatively savage. Yeah. But then you're
you
savage.
Creatively savage. You're still savage.
That is it.
But if you have to be savage on on death matters, I feel like
it's just like, you know, for every joke that we think is funny, it is not funny to some people.
Yeah.
So I think that's just it. Nothing can be done.
I mean, it's just the individual. It's just you. I mean, what gets to you, what you're allowed to get to you. You gotta guide yourself. I mean, from all of this. People on social media street, people ain't got no chills. They don't care what they say to you. They really don't care.
And it's not even just social media, to be honest. I feel like everybody thinks that. It's just that in real life, I wouldn't be able to say it, and on Twitter, I'll be able to just tweet out that second thought. I can't count how many times people have been crying over serious matters, and I find it funny, and I cannot help myself. But in physical life, I'll just be like, hold it. Maybe on Twitter, I'll just be able to be like, No. So it really depends.
No, but what's a word? Spoken rating, they still have their effect on you. I mean, so we just want to be careful out there.
Just try to build yourself in this journey of self-discovery, like we mentioned yesterday. All right, moving on to the next story. It is spiritually dangerous to touch your child after having sex with a man. According to ex-BB Niger housemate Gifty, touching your kids after engaging in sexual intercourse with a man who is not their father is spiritually dangerous.
And I would like to know what she's reading, or what she's smoking, or what she's digesting. I'd like to know where this is coming from, because I don't understand it.
But then I think it's just
a thing of hygiene. Like when you're done,
thing of hygiene.
Yeah, just for hygiene. In case you've got hepatitis B from, whatever, just go wash your hands, have a bath.
By having your bath and then whatever it is you will have contacted by the relation.
Did you notice that she said whether you're single or married? Yeah. So I don't understand how a married woman is supposed to be. I don't know.
She's making a defense for, I don't know.
Oh, okay. It's interesting how people spiritualize sex here in this part of the world. I remember even growing up, they'll have things like spiritual husband, having sex in your dream. Like, we do that a lot. We fetishize and like spiritualize
but the
sex.
African man is fetish, so the African man is fetish. I mean, to some people, I'm sorry, it's just as physical as the
of course,
engagement
as peeing, as hugging, as doing a handshake.
So I don't know what Gift was trying to say. I don't know if she was trying to be very deep and spiritual, but it's just a whole lot about that, Ash. I don't get it.
It missed me. It didn't hit it.
However, like I was saying, from a medical stance and hygiene, if you do it, please wash your hands.
Oh wow!
Have your bath.
Dirty?
Pee. Like they always say, you pee first and you shower.
Are you supposed to be spreading somebody else's?
But what if you showered before having sex? You already.
I know you shower again after having.
Even if it was like 10 a.m., 4 a.m. Okay.
Why are you carrying your child at 4 a.m.? The child is sleeping. So by the time the child is up, let's move. I think we should move on. Let's move on to more important conversations, right?
Less.
Okay. So media personality Gbemi Olateru Olagbegi has started a conversation which we think is quite interesting. She says the love of your life is a fraudster or scammer and you just found out. You thought he or she had a successful business, but it's just a clever fund. Your partner has no plan to quit. What's your next move? Let's start with the corporate Malia, which is Beniak.
But I don't know. Is this a sub? Is this personal?
It's just a question. She's throwing it out there.
Personal, because I know her husband.
Okay, great. So the point is that there was a period of dating, right? Or the love of your life. Before you both of you started going out, you must have known this person to a great extent. I mean, you must have seen them in their element, what they do or what they don't do.
Remember, there's a funds business.
No, but this is it, right? If you're very, I don't know, I'm not involved in fraud, so I don't know how much of it you can cover up when you're involved in it.
You can cover a lot.
You can cover a lot. What are you on about?
So, you don't know, and you found out.
What do you do, Benny? You found out your kind of girlfriend.
Are you going to break up?
Yeah.
Well, are you saying
you're married?
Are you saying the love of my life? Or
yeah.
Am I the fraudster or she's the fraudster?
She's the fraudster.
She's the fraudster.
The sides to it. I want to find out what exactly the problem is. I want to know why. Why are you doing this in the first place?
Okay, oh my goodness.
And then at the end of the day, At the end of the day, I'm going to ask you to discontinue.
She's not planning on discontinuing.
She's not planning.
And then I'm sorry, I'm not going to get myself mixed up with you and get into trouble.
So you're going for a divorce?
We're done. Sorry, we're so done. Yeah. It's over. It's
a
over.
Hard one. I put myself in the situation. I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think I'll leave immediately. The way I'm wired, I'll probably go with it till you hooked me in the throat and I can't anymore.
It's not just about the proceeds.
Have you seen the series Breaking Bad?
Yes. Okay. Obviously, I don't think it's that dramatic. That's a lot more comicalized.
Because you just said you would go with it. You would just break up immediately.
What I mean go with it, I'm not saying go with the business because I wasn't
Breaking Bad, it is different because he did not start as a fraudster. He was already married.
You didn't know this person was a fraudster.
No, he wasn't a fraudster for the better part of his life.
Yeah, he was a school teacher.
This person is different. This person is a good scammer because I've also been scammed. I've been in love with somebody who I'm just thinking of myself right now, my fiance right now. I found out that he's a scammer.
What would you do?
I don't think I would be able to leave immediately because I'm already very emotionally attached. But I know that as soon as I find out, the relationship is already done. But I will stall in terms of, I'm not going to say I'm going to immediately break up with that. I'm not. I'm going to try and figure out what it is and my life will be altered, try to fix it, try to solve it, try to see how bad it is legally And if I'm protected, I'll be thinking about all of that stuff. Am I going to be protected? You know, what is this thing? And I think also depends on the measure of scamming we're talking about.
And also the country involved.
It's scamming. I mean, it's whatever level it is, it's still scamming. It's scamming.
Yeah, and I said the country
really
involved as well.
True, because
the whole process might not be abrupt, because again, the danger in that is that okay, let me try and see, let me change your mind. You know, let me see if I can.
But will
you?
Stop. You know, the most interesting question is that will you rat them out?
No, I won't do that. I won't do it. No, I'm not going to do that. I'll just save myself
from the situation.
From whatever.
I mean, you have to go.
So you won't be a turn to decay.
That's it.
All right. I think that's how wrap up this episode of Tea Time. Thank you for watching, and you can watch this conversation all over again by visiting our YouTube channel, Plus TV Africa, and please do subscribe. You can also watch Tea Time on R2 TV and in London on Ben Television. My thank you as always to go to my co-anchors, Ife Omai and Beniak, and the entire production team. Thank you for watching Plus TV Africa's Tea Time. My name is Elsie Godwin. Do stay with us.
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
The moment he came with that message of you don't expect me to treat the 97% the same way I would treat the 5%, that was a statement of division.
I haven't even heard. I did not know that this had come up again. Really? I didn't know it had gone into second reading. So thank you for mentioning it. This is the most ridiculous thing I've heard. To think that these people can like raid this country, destroy this country, and then ask for immunity.
Isn't democracy the government of the people, by the people, for the people?
That's what it should be.
And at what point did we give the power within this democracy, of this democracy, to the people we have voted?
The Constitution is not we, the people, as we have it today. It's not we, the people, that promulgate. That Constitution is not us.
It has nothing to do with
It's something that was foisted on us.
welcome to Tea Time on Plus TV Africa, where we bring you the biggest entertainment stories and, of course, analyze them for you.
You can have both parents and still end up as a useless child. I see them every day.
Most times I worry more about where I'm coming from and where I am now, and that determines my next step.
Why are you sounding like
Alibaba
now?
Plus TV Africa, we're feeling good. No time to dull, everybody feeling alright.
I really like you. I can still make music and people are still buying. Sometimes I look myself minimal IO.
Akpala music is for mature-minded people. I got DMs sometimes from Malawi, like,
Sleeping early.
Thank you for joining us on Plus TV Africa News on the Hour, where we unbundle top and big stories of the day. My name is Felicity Ezewike. President Muhammadu Buhari says stronger diplomatic ties with Hellenic Republic and Republic of Cuba will bolster Nigeria's ongoing efforts at diversifying the economy, improving global competitiveness, and repositioning the country to play more leading roles. In a statement in Abuja on Tuesday, Femi Adesina, the president's spokesman, said President Buhari stated this when he received letters of credence from the ambassador of Hellenic Republic to Nigeria at the presidential villa. The Nigerian leader said the long-standing diplomatic and business relations with the country will be strengthened for mutual benefit, noting that most global challenges will need collective efforts for lasting solutions. In his remarks, the ambassador said business ties between Nigeria and Hellenic Republic, also known as Greece, has been long, particularly the flour mills that employed about 50,000 Nigerians at some point in the country's history. While receiving the letters of credence of the ambassador of Cuba to Nigeria, President Buhari said the cultural similarities between both countries should serve as impetus for working together, especially on trade. The Supreme Court has dismissed the application of the People's Democratic Party's Emeka Ihedioha, seeking an overturn of the Apex Court's January the 14th judgment, which nullified the electoral victory of Ihedioha and ordered that the certificate of return be issued to Senator Hope Uzodinma of the All Progressive Congress APC. 6 of the justices that sat on the panel unanimously agreed that a decision by the Apex Court, led by Justice Tanko Mohammed, should stand, while Justice Chima Weze gave a disagree. Our correspondent, Amadine Uyi, reports.
The case had generated tension as no election dispute resolved by the Supreme Court of Nigeria had been set aside by the Apex Court in the past. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, had revealed that a 7-man panel of Supreme Court justices, led by Justice Tanko Mohammed, had been misled by the All Progressives Congress, APC, and so the judgment should be reversed. However, after several weeks of bickering by both political parties and postponement by the Supreme Court, the Apex Court finally made its decision known.
Today, Supreme Court has affirmed its decision that Hope Uzodinma was legitimately elected the governor of Imo State. It has refused the application to set aside its judgment as an abuse of court process. We want to appreciate the Supreme Court, and we also want to appreciate our colleagues on the other side. This is essence of having a court. Instead of resorting to violence or self-help, they have come before the court.
The Supreme Court 6-1 dismissed the application on the ground that it lacks merit, that the Supreme Court does not have the jurisdiction to review its judgment or set aside its judgment, unless on certain exceptional grounds, which none of those grounds was playing out in that case.
counsels involved in the case say it was clear that the Supreme Court displayed the highest form of independence, as the judgment by the 7-man panel had 1 out of 7, Justice Chima Nweze, recant on his earlier decision and take the side of the PDP.
The fundamental issue is that it shows the independence of each justice of the Supreme Court in determining issues before them. One of the justices dissented. So as far as he is concerned, he found that the decision ought to have been set aside, and he set it aside. What is then the implication of his decision? The implication of the decision is that he expressed his opinion, but then the majority carried the day. In other words, the authority for whatever it is now is the decision of the 6 justices that will not be the authority for subsequent application that will come.
Some believe that with the new judgment, the case has finally been resolved, and there is no hope for further appeal.
The court has spoken twice that Uzodinma is the governor of Imo State. I want to appeal to everybody to go back and work with him. The Supreme Court will not speak a third time on this matter.
If any other person brings any application similar to this, we rely on the decision just delivered today to be an authority for us to ask the court not to the majority. So that's the issue.
Many say justice should not only be done, but to be seen to be done. Now that the Supreme Court has served its own dose of justice, it is hoped that governance can now resume in Imo State. Amadil Uyu, Plus TV Africa.
Meanwhile, the national chairman of the All Progressive Congress, APC, Adams Oshomole, has commended the judgment of the Supreme Court on the Imo State governorship election. The chairman said the judgment of the Apex Court has affirmed that the choice of the people of Imo State has been respected. He spoke to reporters on Tuesday, moments after the Supreme Court dismissed the application of Emeka Ihedioha. Health officials in Lagos State have quarantined a Chinese national shortly after he arrived in the country via an Ethiopian airline plane. The Commissioner for Health in the state, Akin Abayomi, disclosed this to reporters on Tuesday. The Chinese citizen was escorted at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport after he was made to go through the mandatory screening for those coming into the country. He was moved to the Lagos State Isolation Center where he was being tested for the novel coronavirus. However, the result of the test has yet to be established. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you more news here on Plus TV Africa. Our conversation on One-on-One today is with Dr. Charles Omole, a trainer and strategist to businesses and governments across Europe, Middle East and Africa.
To get into the reins of leadership, it won't be given to us. We've got to go and get it.
How do we begin to change the narrative when it comes to leadership in this country?
Well, that's a very excellent question. It is true there is a leadership crisis, but it's not just a Nigerian problem. It's an African problem. The trajectory of all African countries have largely been the same, which is downwards, in the last 30, 40 years. These are people who have not managed 2 people in their life, some of them, and they want to be president of a 200 million, for them to even have the audacity that, because the Constitution says you have the right to, doesn't mean you should.
Premieres this Friday at 12:30 p.m. with a repeat broadcast on Sunday at 9:30 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Ndị be anyị, ana m ekene unu. None.
The moment he came with that message of you don't expect me to treat the 97% the same way I would treat the 5%, that was a statement of division.
I haven't even heard. I did not know that this had come up again. Really? I didn't know it had gone into second reading. So thank you for mentioning it. This is the most ridiculous thing I've heard. To think that these people can raid this country, destroy this country, and then ask for immunity.
Isn't democracy the government of the people, by the people, for the people?
That's what it should be.
And at what point did we give the power within this democracy, of this democracy, to the people we have voted?
The Constitution is not we, the people, as we have it today. It's not we, the people, that promulgate. That Constitution is not us.
It has nothing to do with it.
It's something that was foisted on us.
Welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways.
Coronavirus, it's a viral infection. And the new coronavirus that we're all talking about, novel coronavirus, it's part of a family of various coronaviruses that do exist.
If anybody is not prepared right now, I would say it's carelessness, because it is something we all knew was going to come.
Symptoms to look out for, the main ones are cough, high fever, and respiratory distress. That just means breathing difficulties.
I will say no country is prepared for coronavirus as it is.
Really?
Prevention is key, and hand hygiene is key when we are talking about this.
Alcohol does not kill it. You just need to take a lot of water.
So
taking a lot of
hydrate
water,
your system.
Hydrate yourself.
There is no cure right now. The only thing that we have to help us right now, prevention.
Awesome.
Mona Lisa is all about me. It's all about you. It's all about our stories. The stories that never get told, but ought to.
Whereby water transportation does not make financial sense, it makes economic sense.
I was there for 2.5 hours on the floor. Nobody attended to me.
If we don't take care of the poor will take care of us.
It's about getting at the root of things and hearing from the horse's mouth.
We have 15 public hospitals to make them affordable.
In the whole of Africa, we are bigger. You know, Nigeria, we sleep, eat, dream, fashion.
Those with the financial backing don't see fashion as an investment, which makes no sense.
If they do it for free, they won't have money for the next case.
Mona Lisa is about real life and real lives, yours and mine. Make a date with Mona Lisa, and together, let's ensure that the important stories get told.
The fear of the coronavirus spread in the country grew on Tuesday as the House of Representatives resolved that the National Assembly should suspend plenary to prevent lawmakers from being infected with the disease. The House took the decision as the Minister of Health, Dr. Sage Hanire, said the Director General of the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazu, who had just returned from China, was in self-isolation for 14 days, as is the due process. Federal government added that it has deployed environmental health officers in public places such as motor parks, markets and schools to stem the spread of the disease. On Tuesday, the House of Representatives called for the suspension of the National Assembly plenary for 2 weeks, adding that the management of the legislature should install screening and sanitation devices at the National Assembly complex during the period. Joining me in the studio is medical practitioner Ajike Oladoyin. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, we have a situation, coronavirus. There seems to be a palpable concern that this could become a pandemic, despite, all the preparation that we've seen, particularly in Lagos State. From what you've observed, should we be calm or anxious?
I would advocate being calm. There are several factors that people aren't taking into consideration. We have one case too many, but it's one case, and we have 200 million people. The chances are very, very low. But the key thing really is that this disease is not a severe disease. It's actually a relatively mild disease. The problem that has caused all the anxiety is the fact that it spreads very fast and very easily. So the majority of people will not suffer any significant side effects from it. The people who are mostly at risk are the elderly, and they are the cohort in which we've seen the most deaths because they tend to have weaker immune systems. People who have diseases that make their immune systems weak as well are at greater risk. But the general public, the averagely healthy person, is really not at significant risk of severe illness from this disease.
One would say the way it's presented in the media at the moment and the deaths keep rising as it stands. At last count, I understand it's over 3,000, I beg your pardon, 3,000 people dead of coronavirus. So would you say maybe the reportage is sort of affecting the perception among Nigerians as of now?
Definitely, it has had an effect. And we all know that bad news sells better. And people don't want to hear that it's something mild, or it's not being reported as much that it's something mild. Okay. So this scare is there, but when you really look at the statistics, the death rate is closer to 0.4 to 0.5% of people infected. There are a few outliers. Iran, for example, has had a much higher death rate amongst the people infected. I think theirs is closer to 5%, and there's investigation being done into why that's the case in that particular country. But in most places, you have a very, very low death rate, and it has been mostly elderly people who have succumbed.
How would you rate our level of preparedness? It seems at the moment, the much we hear is from Lagos State. Yes. There are reports that in Abuja, the isolation center is still under construction, and we don't know of other parts of the country how prepared they are. So how would you rate what you've seen so far, starting with Lagos State?
So in Lagos State, I would say the preparedness has been pretty good. We're fortunate to have a health commissioner whose area of specialty sort of falls into this field. So he prepared Lagos quite well before it came. And the memories of Ebola were still quite fresh in people's memories. So there was some organizational memory that came into play as soon as the risk of coronavirus came about. So Lagos has been fairly well prepared, and it has shown in what happened when the index case showed up. But there's also the need for that heightened index of awareness, which also helped in this case. The doctors who saw the gentleman first had that suspicion, and even though their state wasn't quite ready at that point, they knew to contact Lagos, where the appropriate thing was done. So
there's some level of communication that is effective communication that is helping the process. Okay, let's look at prevention now. They're saying prevention is better than cure. It's a local comment that we use in situations like this. So what should be the preventive measures that Nigerians can take at this moment to avoid the possibility of contacting the virus?
Similar to Ebola and pretty much every viral illness, the main thing is hand hygiene. Now, unfortunately, the term hand hygiene has been associated with hand sanitizer, whereas the primary form of hand hygiene is washing your hands regularly with soap and water. That's the preferred form of hand hygiene, and that's easily available to everyone. So the rush on sanitizers, the shortage,
and the price has gone
the price has
roof.
skyrocketed. It's unfortunate because we are giving more importance to that than to soap and water, which is easily available to all of us.
What about the face mask? That's another one.
That is actually dangerous to the healthcare system, because now the healthcare workers who need the masks are not able to get them. And it then puts them at risk, and their patients who have other conditions at risk, because what they need to perform surgeries, for example, that's what these masks that are commonly sold are used for. So they're surgical face masks. They're in short supply now, and again, the price of those has skyrocketed as well. The N95 masks that people are worrying about and looking for are really, really hard to get, and they are specifically for healthcare workers who may have to work with a suspect case or a confirmed case. So it's really putting
You're basically
strain.
advocating that we do more of proper hand washing,
yes.
And not be so carried away with having sanitizers available.
That's
sanitizers aren't they effective as well?
They are effective. They're useful for where you where soap and water is hard to get. So when it's not convenient to wash your hands, when you're out and about in the middle of the market or somewhere where it would be difficult to wash your hands, then sanitizers are useful. But in your home, in your offices, most places that you'd go to, it is possible to wash your hands with soap and water, and that's really the preferred.
Okay, we have two people, two professors actually, a former INEC chairman, Maurice Iwu, and another, I think, what's his name now? That's Madueke Ezibe, the same person that initially said he found the cure for HIV and AIDS. Both of them have come up to say that they found the cure for coronavirus. Is this good news? Should we take them seriously?
Well, it would be good news if it could be scientifically proven. So my suggestion would be that they submit whatever it is that they have that they think would work against the coronavirus to the proper authorities for rigorous testing, proper testing, and then we would know. It would put Nigeria on the map if it were true, but I will admit that the chances are pretty slim.
Okay, we hear that the man from Milan, currently quarantined in Lagos, is making steady progress. And from what I hear, he is 70% stable. What is the prognosis for his having triggered a spread, seeing as we don't have contact with an assessment of the status of the people that he had he's been in contact with? There's been no escalation of his case. There's been no, something that will make us fear. So where are we with that? Does that imply in any way that we might not have a fallout from him being in contact with these people?
So we can only continue to be hopeful. The fact that we're not hearing everything in the media does not mean that there's not a lot going on behind the scenes. There's active contact tracing going on. There are people who have been put on self-quarantine for the required 14 days from the time of exposure, people who have been contacted because they were known to have had some form of contact with him. So there are things that are actually going on that we may not be aware of in the news. But we can't rest easy yet. We have to continue to be vigilant until we're sure that
it's out of danger zone.
It's gone.
Before I let you go on this, are there any loopholes, maybe, or gaps in our healthcare system that is becoming exposed as a result of this virus?
I'm not aware of any yet, but there always will be things that come up that you cannot anticipate. You can't anticipate every possibility. And a lot of the time, it's as they come up that you have to deal with them. And I really do challenge those people who say our government hasn't done enough to look at the fact that this disease is in over 60 countries. So are all those governments also not doing enough? A lot of the countries that have the best healthcare in the world are affected, and they have a lot more cases than we do. So this is a very tricky disease, and we have to recognize the fact that it's new. We really didn't have anything to prepare for.
Thank you very much for your thoughts on the news.
Thank you.
Right, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue to unbundle big stories here on Plus TV Africa.
Welcome to Tea Time on Plus TV Africa, where we bring you the biggest entertainment stories and, of course, analyze them for you.
You can have both parents and still end up as a useless child. I see them every day.
Most times I worry more about where I'm coming from and where I am now. Wow. And that determines my next step.
Why are you sounding like
Alibaba
now?
Plus TV Africa, we're feeling good. No time to dull, everybody feeling alright. Make music and people are still buying. Sometimes I look myself minimal IU.
Akpala music is for mature-minded people. I got DMs sometimes from Malawi, like, sleeping early.
first point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Oshukeye.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Events is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely, right? No question. He's a living legend. Oh, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, I know.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild. This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity.
No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry. You're watching
Plus Event
on Plus TV. Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
The Supreme Court has dismissed the application of the People's Democratic Party Emeka Ihedioha, seeking an overturn of the Apex Court's January the 14th judgment, which nullified the electoral victory of Ihedioha, ordered that a certificate of return be issued to Senator Hope Uzodinma of the All Progressive Congress APC. 6 of the justices that sat on the panel unanimously agreed that a decision by the Apex Court, led by Justice Tanko Mohammed, should stand, while Justice Chima Weze gave a disagree. In the studio with me is Barrister Zainat Abiri, and joining us via telephone is also Barrister Joseph Ayanti. Thank you very much for joining us on the news.
Thank you.
Barrister Joseph, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you here. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us as well. Let me start with you, Zenith. Your reaction to the ruling. Is it your expectation what came out, or you had hoped, as some others had, and Ihedioha, for instance, that there will be a review and a precedent set by this?
The decision is exactly what I had hoped. In the view of the recent Bayelsa State's judgment, and also because and also relying on the provisions of the Constitution, which doesn't permit for appeals to lie above. There's no appellate court higher than the Supreme Court, so it's a process that's not known to our laws.
Joseph, what's your take on that? Did you get the question?
Yes, thank you very much. The point is that the Supreme Court of Nigeria is the final court as far as this country is concerned. And Supreme Court cannot sit on appeal in its own judgment. The rules of the Supreme Court allows the Supreme Court possibly to correct typographical or what we call some minor errors in its judgment. That is the extent the Supreme Court can go. So what happened yesterday is what it ought to be. That is how it ought to be. Because if we allow Supreme Court to sit on appeal, it is its own judgment. That simply means it's no more the final court. And it is final not because it cannot make a mistake. we are not saying that there may not be mistake in that judgment. But what we are saying is that no matter how serious that mistake can be, once judgment is made, it stands.
If there is a mistake, Joseph, if there is a mistake that needs to be reviewed and it is not done because we say this is the Supreme Court, isn't that a bad precedent to be certain for our justice system?
No. You see, the Supreme Court at the same time have the opportunity and time to correct whatever wrong decision it might have made in a subsequent case that has similarity. For instance, in Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi was pronounced the winner of an election. He never took part in. Then subsequently, Supreme Court now came up to say, don't give this as reference. It corrected itself. For instance, in this Imo State, the Supreme Court said, declare the winner. Then in Bayelsa State, the Supreme Court corrected itself and asked INEC that has the duty to pronounce a winner to go back and recompute and come up with a winner if there is any. So I believe that in as much as we understand that there are mistakes, for instance, the 388 votes.
Let me interject again, Barrister Joseph, and let me bring Zenat in and still stay with that question. If there is a perception, which you seem to agree as well, that there must have been some issues that needed to be reviewed, isn't it a miscarriage of justice if the Supreme Court, because it is the Supreme Court, refuses to take this on?
In my own views, the Supreme Court did not err. I still stand on my grounds. The only errors that the Supreme Court can correct are mere clerical errors, just like my colleague has said, or errors that are meant to give life or effect to the decision itself, not errors that are meant to change, correction of errors that are meant to change the original decision.
Okay, what about the one dissenting voice of Barrister Justice Weze? He held that there was need for review of the Ihedioha case. I know he was outvoted, but the fact that there is one voice that said something needs to be done, doesn't that raise some dust?
The Supreme Court goes by the majority vote. A dissent decision. Well, the dissent was very interesting. I read through it yesterday. I noted the point he made was leaving the decision as it is could lead to miscarriage of justice. But then there are several decisions of the Supreme Court. One of the reasons why it is the apex court is so that there is an end to litigation. If not, you will find litigation already sometimes will take decades in courts. So if appeals are allowed from the Supreme Court, it will just be an endless circle of legal.
We are in democracy. It's a dissenting judgment. However, I would say that he actually made a point, very vital point, but I disagree with him in some of his position. For instance, he said that there is a need for Supreme Court to actually revive that application by Osodema before it can assume jurisdiction. Because if an application is struck out by Court of Appeal, for Supreme Court to come up and take jurisdiction over it, you have to first of all make a pronouncement nullifying the previous stand of the Court of Appeal. Then you now accept the application and assume jurisdiction and entertain. I agree with him to that extent. But he also said that it is somehow that the number of accredited voters was less than the number of votes. And I disagree with him because But by the time you calculated the number of voters, there was an exclusion already. And that exclusion was what the Supreme Court has now said, no, such exclusion was illegal. The Supreme Court now accepted those excluded votes. So having accepted it, it can also count as number of accredited voters have been issued. So I don't think what Wednesday said yesterday will have much to do with our system. He has said his stand, but I am of the opinion that what the justices have said is the correct thing. You cannot sit on appeal on your own judgment. That is why it is the final court. If there's any need for any amendment in subsequent time,
there will be those.
When matters of similarity comes to it, the Supreme Court will have the chance to correct this step.
All right,
it has not done anything bad to our judicial system.
Okay, let me ask. Oh, you just answered a bit of the question I was going to ask. In that, is this whole situation a sore point or a learning curve for Nigerian judiciary?
Yes, it is. One of the major issues raised by the Ihedoha's application was the APC. They at all times during their petition had alleged that the election was a nullity. It was not valid. They had, by their words, invalidated it, and yet are profiting from the same decision, from the same election that they had by themselves alleged was not properly, legally conducted. So I think there should have been a pronouncement on that issue.
Okay. Thank you very much for your thoughts on the news, Barrister.
Thank you.
And of course, Joseph, thank you for coming through via telephone.
Thank you, and God bless you.
All right, we'll go on a short break now, and when we come back, we'll bring you more news here on Plus TV Africa. Stay with us.
This medal has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
We now start hearing the shoot of guns.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
If no talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 and they pay.
You're still watching News on the Hour on Plus TV Africa. Now, for decades, Nigeria's economic outcome in each year has never failed projections and expectations that were based on the activities of the preceding year. Unfortunately, it has all been mostly for unpalatable events. One of the worrisome antecedents in the nation's debt sojourn, it has assumed a geometric rise year after year, while the revenue predictably has taken the opposite direction. Nigeria is in for it in 2020. The Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Amuda Yusuf, said there are expectations that the country's debt profile will trend upwards by 2020, especially on approval of $3 billion credit facility from World Bank for power sector reforms. Joining me in the studio is Michael Famoroti of Steers Data. Thank you very much for coming in.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start off with asking that, say, this is your area of specialty. How did you come to be involved with it?
Okay, all right. So I guess I'm an economist by trade originally, and I've worked as an economist for the last 4 or 5 years. In terms of the focus on data, I think that's really born out of necessity, in that when you begin to study this country, you quickly realize that there are a lot of opinions being traded. Not many of them are grounded on fact and reality. So I and we at Steers began a journey to unplug some of those data gaps so that we can begin to piece together the story and find solutions for businesses and people in the country, really.
So what's the situation in Nigeria generally as of today, since you started work with data gathering?
Well, I think it's fair to say that we're at the start of the journey as a country and a firm. But I think that's what makes it pretty exciting, right? I'll take some time out to applaud the National Bureau of Statistics, because I think under the guidance of the current Statistician General, they've made a lot of strides in the last, I think, 5-6 years. Beyond the NBS, though, data in the country is very patchy, right? So whether you're talking about public sector data, which is not always available, correct, consistent, or credible, or you're talking about private data, which generally just doesn't exist, we're really at the point where we have to start collecting and organizing data before we can start making smart decisions.
Okay, please help us understand the value of data gathering and analysis, especially as it has to do with governance world over.
Yeah, I think it's very easy for us to fetishize data. You hear things like data is a new oil and sort of grand statements. But really, data is, what I see it as really is building blocks for knowledge, right? The example that I'll use is the coronavirus, right? So we know that the Italian that is diagnosed came in on a Turkish flight. Now, what should happen and what is happening is, right, you get the manifest from that flight, right? You run each person's passport number, and depending on the data capability in your country, you either get information that helps you quickly pinpoint where and who they are, or you spend the next few days scrambling to find out how to reach them. Unfortunately, we're more in the latter case, but you see countries like Singapore that instantly they are able to track and monitor where people are and who has the virus, right? So you see a practical way that data actually helps in a field like health. And that can easily be translated to every other field, from governance to the economy, education, and even in the private sector.
Okay, let's speak towards our national development now. Our nation's economic health, specifically. Recently, we learned that our GDP has risen by 2.27%. Help us understand, why is this good news?
Well, I won't quite say it's good news. I think, if anything, the good news is that the economy is growing slightly faster than it has in the last couple of years. But let's put that number in context, right? Because data without context is meaningless, right? So the economy is growing at about 2.7% or 2.3%. The population is growing anywhere between 2.5 and 3.5%. So already you see that the economy is growing slower than the population. If that trend continues, then each year we are getting poorer as a people, right? So that's, first reality that the data says. The second thing is that, yes, we know that the headline number is 2.5%.
And it seems, from the layman's perspective, it's a rise.
Well, it's a rise, but
in context, it's not.
In context, it's not, right? Because for the layman, what matters is how am I affected, right? And the crudest way of checking that is, okay, what is GDP per capita looking like, right? So each year is the average person getting richer. At the moment, it's no. When you factor in the fact that that GDP is concentrated in certain sectors like telecoms, you find that the services that most people are working in, like agriculture, aren't growing as fast, right? So I think that sector is growing about 2 to 3%, and it employs half the population, right? So it's much more important to see that sector growing by 10% than a sector like oil or telecoms, right? Because those employ a much smaller proportion, right? So it's important that, yes, we have the main number, but we dig deeper to understand what they mean and see how it affects individuals, because people respond more to stories than just sort of raw, crude numbers.
Okay, still staying with national development. What does data say about us generally, taking into consideration the security situation in this country, the economy, education, infrastructure? Data-wise, what would be your assessment of our journey?
So I actually looked at this a couple of weeks ago, and it's a very difficult question to answer naturally.
I know. But you can give like an idea based on what
I'll pick a particular data point in particular because I think that is probably the most comprehensive, right? Which again is GDP per capita, right? I did analysis looking at that from 1970 till today, right? And what you found essentially was 1970s we were doing okay. Not much. When the military era came, we tanked, right? So the 70s were okay, the 80s were pretty good, the 90s were a lost decade, right? The economy wasn't growing, nothing was happening. But as soon as democracy came in 1999, you see a very startling rise in living standards, right? So the economy was growing, things were getting better. And you then understand a lot of the positivity around the country at that time. Then there's a sudden change in 2014 after the oil price crash. And since then, generally, things have been going down. When I look at the numbers, I see things happening in decades. So again, the 70s were defined very differently from the 80s and so on. So I'm looking at 2014 to 2024 as a potential down decade. And the reality is that we need to work very hard to reverse the current trend, which generally is downwards.
So how can we use data to proffer solutions and capitalize on it to grow our economy?
Well, so I'll just look at the data value chain to see how to answer that, right? The first step is building infrastructure that allows you to regularly collect credible data. It's not enough to collect data in 2010 and then go to sleep, right? Because by 2015, you need an updated data set, right? And that's one of the biggest problems we have because our population data is from 2006. And essentially every year we add 3% on that number, right? It is unlikely that we are 200 million people, right? Factually, right? It's very unlikely. It's based on data from 15 years ago, right? So we need to build the infrastructure to consistently collect data, right? And the second thing is building the skills to understand and analyze that data and draw out insights, because you can gather as much as you want, but the question is, how do you use it as a country, right? I do think that we have the existing skills in the country, and if we don't, we can always import those skills, right? The harder part is building the infrastructure to consistently collect data.
Yeah. I must thank you very much for a very enlightening conversation.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Right, we'll go on a short break, and when we come back, more stories unbundled here on Plus TV Africa.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
Death in a family is always sad. Death of a breadwinner with a wife and children is even more so. Around the world, the death of a spouse in most cases bring up challenges that often undermine the quality of life of those left behind. For women, the world calls them widows.
My husband died 2000 January, when I carried so much from baby.
I became a widow when I was 47 years old. And my husband was sick for good 3 years. And the family abandoned me and my husband. The family reject us. Nobody has of us. The family reject us. They reject my children. Nobody. I have to struggle.
You can watch the rest of that documentary on our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa. Now, joining us via telephone is Professor Shola Fosudo. He is the founder and president of Blessed Fruit Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
The story of widows often seems a pathetic one. Does it all turn on the lack of financial independence?
Come again, please.
I'm saying that the story of widows often seems a pathetic one. Does it all turn on the lack of financial independence?
For the widows?
Yes.
Well, I mean, there are various reasons why the widows need to be supported and empowered. But certainly one of them is to make them financially independent, but also it is to support them emotionally and to make sure that they get integrated properly into the society, because the moment their husbands pass on, they go through all kinds of emotional and mental situations that make them need the assistance of the society. So the foundation is set up to support them emotionally, psychologically, mentally, and so on, and also to make them financially buoyant to be able to support themselves and their children.
Okay, often there are children involved. Why do we not see families rallying to support these children in memory of the lost brother or son?
Why do we not support the children?
Why do we not see families rallying around? Because sometimes it seems after the demise of the brother or the son, they tend not to care for the welfare of the wife and children.
Well, yeah, it's really unfortunate. I mean, that's part of what we inherited, in our society. Most widows, the moment their husbands pass away, in fact, many families begin to maltreat them. They don't care how they survive. Only God knows why that happens. But I want to believe that it is not all widows that happened to. A few of them are supported by their families, but many of them are, in fact, maltreated.
Okay,
sometimes they will throw them out of their husband's house. Okay. They will tell them that the property belongs to the man. Is now, now belongs to the family.
Okay, Professor, I need to interject because we're very short on time. I just want to ask you what your organization has been able to in fact, your organization has been able to provide a degree of succor for these widows in need. My question is, what are some of the ways you have done this?
Well, we have several intervention programs. The most important is what we call business empowerment. We facilitate business loans for those who are interested in doing business through microfinance banks, and we pay the interest on the loans. They only pay the principal sums. Then their children, we provide what we call back to school for them when they are going back to school every year. We buy the school sandals, school bags, books, and writing materials and all that. We also do what we call welfare program during major seasons like Easter, Christmas, Eid al-Fitr, or all those Muslim.
You definitely find ways to provide for these women in spite of lean resources. We thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes.
All right. And that's our news roundup of events at this hour. For more news updates, please follow us at Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's also at Plus TV Africa. We'll be back later with more stories making the headlines. Do please join us again. Thank you for watching from all of us here at Plus TV Africa.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
I actually moved back to Nigeria to open a bakery. This was my goal, and everything I did up till this point was in preparation for this. First of all, life was great because I moved in 2015 right before the recession, right? It was awesome. I was like, wow, there's so much money out here, man. The cost of overheads, power generation, water, you have to be your own local government. And there are no tax breaks. Many places where, where they realize the small business environment is difficult would offer some kind of tax breaks and incentives. We don't do that out here. We want you to come back. We want you to, to start businesses here, but we're not going to do anything to help you. All my experiences in the past have led me ultimately to where I am now.
Our conversation on One-on-One today is with Dr. Charles Omole, a trainer and strategist to businesses and governments across Europe, Middle East and Africa.
To get into the reins of leadership, it won't be given to us. We've got to go and get it.
How do we begin to change the narrative when it comes to leadership in this country?
Well, that's a very excellent question. It is true there is a leadership crisis, but it's not just a Nigerian problem. It's an African problem. The trajectory of all African countries have largely been the same, which is downwards, in the last 30, 40 years. These are people who have not managed two people in their life, some of them, and they want to be president of a 200 million, for them to even have the audacity that, because the Constitution says you have the right to, doesn't mean you should.
Premieres this Friday at 12:30 p.m. with a repeat broadcast on Sunday at 9:30 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
In a world of overwhelming voices, where everyone has something to say, it is important that we bring the core issues to the fore.
As we lend our voices to inspire, inform, influence, and provoke your thoughts and action.
We want to hear these issues and know what you are saying. This is not just women talking.
It is an evocative program that touches the core of our existence.
We take on topics some may consider taboo and want to sweep under the carpet.
We understand that what touches one touches all.
We know you have a lot to say, so let's hear you.
Mona Lisa is all about me. It's all about you. It's all about our stories. The stories that never get told, but ought to.
Whereby water transportation does not make financial sense, it makes economic sense.
I was there for 2.5 hours on the floor. Nobody attended to me.
If we don't take care of the poor will take care of us.
It's about getting at the root of things and hearing from the horse's mouth.
We have 15 public hospitals to make them affordable.
In the whole of Africa, we are bigger. Nigeria, we sleep, eat, dream, fashion.
Those with the financial backing don't see fashion as an investment, which makes no sense.
If they do it for free, they won't have money for the next case.
Mona Lisa is about real life and real lives, yours and mine. Make a date with Mona Lisa, and together, let's ensure that the important stories get told.
Hello and many thanks for joining us on News on the Hour on Plus TV Africa. Here are some of the stories making the headlines. My name is Felicity Ezewike. President Muhammadu Buhari says stronger diplomatic ties with Hellenic Republic and Republic of Cuba will bolster Nigeria's ongoing efforts at diversifying the economy, improving global competitiveness, and repositioning the country to play more leading roles. In a statement in Abuja on Tuesday, Femi Adesina, the president's spokesman, said President Buhari stated this when he received letters of credence from the ambassador of Hellenic Republic to Nigeria at the presidential villa. The Nigerian leader said the long-standing diplomatic and business relations with the country would be strengthened for mutual benefit, noting that most global challenges will need collective efforts for lasting solutions. In his remarks, the ambassador said business ties between Nigeria and Hellenic Republic, also known as Greece, has been long, particularly the flour mills that employed about 50,000 Nigerians at some point in the country's history. While receiving the letters of credence of the ambassador of Cuba to Nigeria, President Buhari said the cultural similarities between both countries should serve as impetus for working together, especially on trade. The Supreme Court has dismissed the application of the People's Democratic Party's Emeka Ihedioha, seeking an overturn of the Apex Court's January the 14th judgment, which nullified the electoral victory of Ihedioha and ordered that a certificate of return be issued to Senator Hope Uzodinma of the All Progressive Congress. 6 of the justices that sat on the panel unanimously agreed that a decision by the Apex Court, led by Justice Tanko Muhammad, should stand. Justice Chima Weze gave a disagree. Our correspondent, Tamatin Uyi, reports.
Dispute resolved by the Supreme Court of Nigeria had been set aside by the Apex Court in the past. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, had revealed that a 7-man panel of Supreme Court justices, led by Justice Tanko Muhammad, had been misled by the All Progressives Congress, APC, and so the judgment should be reversed. However, after several weeks of bickering by both political parties and postponement by the Supreme Court, the Apex Court finally made its decision known.
Today, the Supreme Court has affirmed its decision that Hope Uzodinma was legitimately elected the governor of Imo State. It has refused the application to set aside its judgment as an abuse of court process. We want to appreciate the Supreme Court, and we also want to appreciate our colleagues on the other side. This is essence of having a court. Instead of resorting to violence or self-help, they have come before the court.
The Supreme Court 6-1 dismissed the application on the ground that it lacked merit, that the Supreme Court does not have the jurisdiction to review its judgment or set aside its judgment, unless on certain exceptional grounds, which none of those grounds was playing out in that case.
Counsels involved in the case say it was clear that the Supreme Court displayed the highest form of independence, as the judgment by the 7-man panel had 1 out of 7, Justice Chima Nweze, recant on his earlier decision and take the side of the PDP.
The fundamental issue is that it shows the independence of each justice of the Supreme Court in determining issues before them. One of the justices dissented. So as far as he is concerned, he found that the decision ought to have been set aside, and he set it aside. What is then the implication of his decision? The implication of the decision is that he expressed his opinion, but then the majority carried the day. In other words, the authority for whatever it is now is the decision of the 6 justices that will not be the authority for subsequent application that will come.
Some believe that with the new judgment, the case has finally been resolved, and there is no hope for further appeal.
The court has spoken twice that Uzodinma is the governor of Imo State. I want to appeal to everybody to go back and work with him. The Supreme Court will not speak a third time on this matter.
If any other person brings any application similar to this, we rely on the decision just delivered today to be an authority for us to ask the court not to the majority. So that's the issue.
Many say justice should not only be done, but to be seen to be done. Now that the Supreme Court has served its own dose of justice, it is hoped that governance can now resume in Imo State. Amadin Uyu, Plus TV Africa.
With me in the studios is Barrister Zenat Abiri. Thank you very much for staying with us.
Thank you for having me.
What's your take on the Supreme Court saying it cannot review its own decision?
It's only acting in accordance to the powers granted to it under our Constitution, which makes it the court of final and last resort. So there's no court in Nigeria who can sit in appeal over its own decision. That is why we have the court in hierarchy. And the Supreme Court remains the apex court. Asking the Supreme Court to overrule itself and review its decision outside the provision, the ambit it is allowed to, which is to correct clerical errors or give effect to the decision made already, will open the doors to so many frivolous applications coming in, even at the lower courts, which will, of course, open also the judicial system up to endless litigations.
Okay, in your position as a lawyer that is vast with what goes on in the judiciary, is this the right decision by the Supreme Court, or was there credible reasons for a review of the election?
There were some points raised that I think were points that should have been raised at the lower courts. So you can't raise those fresh points at the stage of appeal. Those points, well, they were good, interesting points, but does not give the Supreme Court power. The Supreme Court gets its power from the Constitution, and the Constitution is clear on the finality of the Supreme Court's decision. I think reviewing the judgment would have amounted to abuse of its powers, and would have meant the total disregard for the powers conferred on it, the limitations of its powers conferred on it by the Constitution. So they acted in line. They acted in line with what my expectation. And I think what they did was fair in the interest of justice.
Okay, what in your opinion are the implications of the precedents being set by this ruling?
It just means it's basically maintain status quo, which this is the current position that the president have been, that he cannot sit on his own, he cannot sit on appeal on his own decision. So it gives further, it strengthens that position. It can now be used as a point for argument in subsequent cases when this kind of applications come up. So it's a strong precedent. A 6-to-1 majority judgment is a strong precedent.
What are the options for the parties now that the whole drama has, screeched to a halt? There is no other open litigation for both parties. What should be the next steps?
The next steps will be for all parties to abide by the decision, the judgments of the Supreme Court, and do all within their power to ensure that the office of the governor of Imo State is run smoothly by the governor that was installed.
Thank you very much for your thoughts on the news. All right, we continue with other stories now. The Ministry of Environment has revealed its commitment to containing the coronavirus. The Minister of Environment, Mahmood, while speaking to newsmen in Abuja, says the ministry is set to deploy environmental health officers to assist in tackling the spread of the virus and help to identify high-risk areas. Mahmood says the ministry will insist on proper hygiene management and increase awareness on the benefits of hand washing as a containment measure to curb the spread of the virus.
The environment sector, under the leadership of the Federal Minister of Environment, will key into the COVID-19 containment strategy of the health sector. We shall deploy environmental health officers to coordinate essential strategies in identifying high-risk areas in Nigeria. Universal temperature monitoring, masking and hand washing, in addition to mobilizing protocols, shall be prioritized in the environmental contingency plan. In the same vein, environmental decontamination and disinfection shall be undertaken in high exposure areas with a view of killing the developed viruses.
The news will continue after this very short break. Don't go away.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect am. If you no talk, dem go beat you. Na 2,500 they pay.
Senegal recorded its second case of COVID-19. The Ministry of Health confirmed in a statement late Tuesday. Authorities said the patient was a French national who arrived in Dakar on February 29 from Paris. This case is similar to the first, which was recorded on Monday, also of a French national resident in Senegal, but having flown in from France. Up next is our foreign news. Joe Biden has won 8 of the 14 states that voted to pick a Democratic White House candidate on Super Tuesday, a remarkable rebound for his campaign. The ex-U.S. vice president has swept Massachusetts, Minnesota, Oklahoma, Kansas, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia. But Bernie Sanders is being projected to win the biggest prize of the night, California and 3 other states. They lead the race to face Republican President Donald Trump in November. Coming up after the short break is our business news with Irene Ubani.
This Medan has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
When I start hearing the shoot of gun.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Our conversation on One-on-One today is with Dr. Charles Omole, a trainer and strategist to businesses and governments across Europe, Middle East and Africa.
To get into the reins of leadership, it won't be given to us. We've got to go and get it.
How do we begin to change the narrative when it comes to leadership in this country?
Well, that's a very excellent question. It is true there is a leadership crisis, but it's not just a Nigerian problem. It's an African problem. The trajectory of all African countries have largely been the same, which is downwards, in the last 30, 40 years. These are people who have not managed 2 people in their life, some of them, and they want to be president of a 200 million, I mean, for them to even have the audacity that, because the Constitution says you have the right to, doesn't mean you should.
Premieres this Friday at 12:30 p.m. with a repeat broadcast on Sunday at 9:30 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
And in business, recent data by S&P revised Nigeria from a stable to negative economy. We also have seen that with a population size of over 200 million people, we in recent times have seen our foreign direct investment also decline, with Ghana, for example, attracting more FDIs. Now joining me in the studio live here is Michael Famoroti of Stairs NG. Thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure to be here this morning.
Yes. Regarding the reports by S&P, does it bother you a lot when you saw that Nigeria was moved from a stable economy to, downward trend, having it as negative?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not a good sign. Now all 3 major ratings companies have us in, I guess, negative or junk territory. It is a symptom of what's going on, right? I think the biggest impacts really have been on the oil price, which is a very important external gauge of the health of our economy, right? Yes, we've seen some recent gains this week, but generally the outlook is quite negative for oil prices. When you also understand that a lot of our FX market is dependent on short-term investment, and those may dwindle as people become more uncertain and move to safer fixed income things, then you understand why the ratings company would expect things to look a bit worse over the next 3 to 6 months on the investment side. So it is unfortunate, but at the same time, it's not particularly so surprising given the hits to oil prices.
I mean, I'm talking about FX. We also see that we have our reserves dropping, massively. What impact would this potentially have on our economic stability moving forward?
Yes, so the reserves are a very important feature because they underpin the current FX strategy, right?
Of course.
Which put simply is a fixed exchange rate that the CBN defends using its reserves. I would have been worried about the reserves, particularly with the drop in the oil price, but at the same time, it looks like the federal government is going to borrow about $3 billion, which automatically sort of boosts your reserves. Eventually, though, the chickens will come home to roost, because when you strip out the dollar debts we have from our reserves, whether you're talking about OMO bills or Eurobonds, then you find that our reserves are somewhere around $20 billion, not $40 billion.
Which is certainly not encouraging for a country of our
Exactly,
size.
right? So I expect the CBN and the government to keep trying to see ways of plugging the reserves gap. But if oil prices drop too low, perhaps we're talking about $45 for a prolonged period, then we may be forced to actually see, are they able to defend this currency? And I expect that the answer might be no.
Now, something else that may, bother some is the fact that our foreign direct investment for a country of this size, like I said before, is below $1 billion. What does this say of a country like ours, particularly to foreign investors?
Yeah, so for me, the most interesting thing about foreign direct investment is
from Q1 to Q3 of last year, it was at $663 million.
Yeah. If you look at the last 10 years, right, if you combine FDI for the last 10 years, you get something like $7 billion has come in, right, in foreign direct investment to Nigeria over a 10-year period. And this is NBS data, right? So it is a long-term trend. Right, it's a trend that we've been seeing for a long time, and it just shows that there isn't long-term confidence in the infrastructure and policy stability. Right, people will bring in their money when they expect to make short-term gains, but when the challenge is to come in here, set up a business or a factory, and stay here and make long-term profits, then it's much less attractive. Right, and that speaks to addressing your infrastructure and institutions, which we are yet to properly do, right? There's no way around that problem apart from addressing those two things.
How would this affect our businesses in the country?
Well, one positive, right, that you would say is in the absence of foreign investments, then perhaps local businesses can, grow, set up, and thrive, right? The reality is, though, that the same environment that is scaring away the foreign investors is the same environment that is, squeezing the local businesses, right? I mean, we can pick up different examples from the Lagos State Okada ban to what we're seeing with Uber now in terms of the taxes that are being imposed. You can bring up corruption, you can talk about security, you can talk about infrastructure. The reality is, it's not a good environment for businesses. And I think the best way of summing that up is by pointing out that the MBS last calculated that there are about 40 million small businesses in the country. Right? Only 70,000 of those employ more than 10 staff. So everybody else is a one-man shop, essentially. You cannot grow an economy based on one-man shops, right? And that's the reality we're in.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. Because of time, this is all we can have. But thank you so much.
Pleasure as always.
Certainly.
Thank you.
And that's all on Business News at this hour. I am Irene Ubani.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
In a world of overwhelming voices, where everyone has something to say, it is important that we bring the core issues to the fore.
As we lend our voices to inspire, inform, influence, and provoke your thoughts and action.
We want to hear these issues and know what you are saying. This is not just women talking.
It is an evocative program that touches the core of our existence.
We take on topics some may consider taboo and want to sweep under the carpet.
We understand that what touches one touches all. We know you have a lot to say, so let's hear you.
Thanks for the company, and that's how we're going to wrap things up at this hour. For more news updates, please follow us at Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa. We'll be back later with more stories making headlines. Do please join us again. Thank you for watching.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
The
moment he came with that message of you don't expect me to treat the 97% the same way I would treat the 5%,
That was a statement of division.
I haven't even heard. I did not know that this had come up again.
Really?
I didn't know it had gone it's into second reading. So thank you for mentioning it. This is the most ridiculous thing I've heard. To think that these people can raid this country, destroy this country, and then ask for immunity.
Isn't democracy the government of the people, by the people, for the people?
That's what it should be.
And at what point did we give the power within this democracy, of this democracy, to the people we have voted?
The Constitution is not we, the people, as we have it today. It's not we, the people, that promulgate. That Constitution is not us.
It has nothing to do with
It's something that was foisted on us.
Our conversation on One today is with Dr. Charles Omole, a trainer and strategist to businesses and governments across Europe, Middle East and Africa.
To get into the reins of leadership, it won't be given to us. We've got to go and get it.
How do we begin to change the narrative when it comes to leadership in this country?
Well, that's a very excellent question. It is true there is a leadership crisis, but it's not just a Nigerian problem. It's an African problem. The trajectory of all African countries have largely been the same, which is downwards, in the last 30, 40 years. These are people who have not managed two people in their life, some of them, and they want to be president of a 200 million, for them to even have the audacity that, because the Constitution says you have the right to, doesn't mean you should.
Premieres this Friday at 12:30 p.m. with a repeat broadcast on Sunday at 9:30 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Good morning. A pleasure to have you join us for another package of Off the Press, the program where we take a look at the headlines making the rounds in our newspapers, and with the help of our guest, who today happens to be Dr. Femi Ido Adegoke. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Nice for having me.
Thank you. My name is Felicity, by the way. We'll start with the Nation newspaper, and the big one here is WHO to trace 103 travelers on flight with Italian victim. That's the big one on the front page. It has two riders. Nigeria enlists world body. Coughing Chinese on arrival at Lagos airport tests negative. That's something. And then inside of the paper, there are a couple of issues still dealing with that, the issue of coronavirus. I'll just highlight some of them. It's pretty small on your screen right now, so I'll just take them for you. State House begins screening. World Bank, IMF cancel meetings. British Airways cancels 216 flights. Emirates Airlines sends workers on leave. India suspends visas to Italians, Iranians. Pope tests negative. NCDC DG in isolation. Tokyo Olympic Games cancellation likely. This is coming just after a press briefing by the man in charge of the Tokyo Olympics, saying that for now there is no cancellation. It's still on point. But I guess that will depend largely on the situation with the what the WHO is describing as a possible pandemic. All right, still on the front page of the Nation, we have at the top, Yahoo boys didn't miss up the paper today. They're still here. Ibadan Yahoo boy caught with a mini coughing, 5 others held. Those things, do they really work?
Well, I don't know.
I wanted to just move on to the next story, but we hear things like this, fetish things that people do, even in 21st century. Does it really work?
Yeah, but for them to be doing it, it must be working for people who believe in it.
Knowing that there's a possibility you will be caught and then you will go to jail?
Yeah, but it just summarizes what the society has become.
Quite unfortunate. All right, I'm not done with the headlines yet. EFCC returns 263 stolen cash to Kwara, 2 billion naira. SMEs cash taken. And then we have NSC to become public quoted company. Equities rally 232 billion naira. That's it. Page 1 comment. For the People's Justice, that's the Imo and Bayelsa states getting a piece, special place on the Nation newspaper this morning. And Amoteku said for takeoff, Lagos, Ogun, Oshun, or your Ondo houses pass bill. There is the leopard skin attire, the much talked about leopard skin that some of the lawmakers wore to plenary to show solidarity with the bill. Supreme Court dismisses Ihedioha's review application. See analysis, APC, PDP reactions on page 44 of the paper. And on the back of it, you have life in the time of coronavirus. I'd love to read that one. And then something on improving our education system is also on the back page of the Nation newspaper. Femi, over to you now. Which of these would you want to... I know I prompted you with the battle, but any other headlines now?
Yes. With the WHO to trace 103 travelers on flight with Italian victim, for me, it's a concern. Why is it WHO that should trace Nigerians in Nigeria?
Well, is this headline apt? Because we know that the Ministry of Health has said they've been able to identify some of these people who had contact with the Italian.
There were supposed to be 157, and then 103 are still not identified. Yes, and I feel the Federal Ministry of Health and the federal government, they're wasting too much time, because this virus, if we allow it to fester too long, it will spread beyond what we can handle. So far, Nigerian government or the Ministry of Health, they're doing their best and they're putting them in place. But I feel at this point, there's a manifest for people who traveled. And you know the names and the contact of the ones who have come out to be tested. In the rest, put it in the newspapers. Put it in let people know, even because people, I understand.
Wouldn't that be an abuse of rights? Because we know that the Ministry of Health said that they cannot divulge the identity of the Italian who has been quarantined because that would be against the ethics of medical practice. So wouldn't that fall in?
But these ones have not even come out to be tested. So the danger of spreading it is there.
Okay, so you're advocating that should go on and...
Because now from 26th of February, today is already 4th of March. We're almost 1 week on. And then we don't even know where they're going to, who they met, who they are. Now, the Federal Ministry of Health and the Center for Disease Control, they are trying to manage the panic by putting measures in place and trying to get this thing sorted. But on the other hand, some part of government, like the legislative arm, and the federal government, the Aso Rock, they're putting panic and fear in people. Now they started testing people when you're going to Aso Rock. Some ministries have started testing people. You understand?
I was at the mall, and before I could enter a shop, they said, please come and sanitize your hand.
And then yesterday, the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Olonli Bemamura, was trying to... So I don't understand. You are trying to manage it, and you are sending panic on the other side. Now our House of Rep are saying they want to go on recession because of
possibility of
coronavirus, because they read in the news that in Iran, 23 Iranian parliament members have tested positive.
If you were to be in their shoes,
no. It just shows. I always say
but seriously, if you were to be in their shoes, would you act differently?
No, this is the time they should work.
They should be at the parliament when there are no preventive measures.
Okay, that means in the first place they are there for self. So how many are they? There are only 360.
Did you see the reasons given? There is no preventive measures. There is no way to test or screen people that are coming in. Wouldn't that be stupidity to be in the National Assembly when you don't know whether the person you're going to be shaking hands with has the virus?
It comes down to their irresponsibility. This thing started in China since December, January, and they're there as our lawmakers. They are all a bunch of irresponsible people.
All right, let's move on to other headlines now. The People's Justice is referring to the Ihedioha and Bayelsa attack. What's your take? The court, there is no litigation. There is no opportunity for litigation now. The Supreme Court has closed all matters concerning this. What's your position on it?
Yes. because the Constitution does not, from what I've read and what the judgment yesterday, the Constitution does not permit the Supreme Court. I'm not a lawyer, so I might not get the interpretation. But in my own understanding, the Constitution does not permit the Supreme Court to appeal or recede on its own judgment. But having said that, there's hope for Nigeria from what we saw yesterday. 7 judges, 6 against 1. But what that judge, I've forgotten his name now. Nweze. What he said was very, very key in Nigeria moving forward. We shouldn't just stop at where we are now. We need to look at it critically. Yes, we understand the Constitution does not permit the Supreme Court to judge its own case. But why did the court overrule the INEC judgment? We're supposed to be the umpire of the election. So in my own thinking now, that means we don't have democracy. The people have been shortchanged. So 6 people now have decided who governs Imo State, not the people of Imo State. It's just the 6 judges that have decided. So there's hope for Nigeria because that Justice Nweze has just shown that he's a man of character. Yes, even in the face of all these constitution and all that brouhaha, I can still say the truth. The truth is that the judgment has been misplaced.
All right, we'll move on to the Punch newspaper now. Still on coronavirus, we have this one that says NCDC boss in isolation after China trip. Reps move to suspend plenary. We just tagged that a bit now. It has 3 riders. A presidency screens visitors to Aso workers for coronavirus. Senator warns on failure to quarantine Chinese second-hand clothes. COVID-19 death toll rises to 9 in Washington state. Cases now 90,893 globally. And then we have the picture of the officers, the lawmakers, as a motorcycle bill is passed by Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Ondo. I'll find details of that story and the rationale behind their chosen attire on page 9 of the paper. Just beneath that, you see Kwara Assembly removes Saraki's name from State University. Reps to probe Navy invasion, demolition of Lagos community. But Abiamila denies sponsoring mom's Dubai birthday with public funds. That's something for you on the 4th page to go read. The top of the paper, just above the masthead, you're looking at the discos rejecting 17,657 megawatts as power outage persists. Details on page 27. Economic crisis forces 42 Lagos SMEs to shut down. Nigeria remains Africa's biggest economy. South Africa enters recession. FG yet to receive $300 million abattoir, says AGF. Details of that one is on page 10. And on the back of the paper you have, so that's coronavirus wounds consumers. You might want to go and see what Lekon is talking about today. Back to the front page of the paper, I'd like us to start this conversation looking at Nigeria remaining Africa's biggest economy as South Africa enters France. Because I was having a conversation earlier in the news with a data analyst who said even though they said there's a slight climb in our GDP, it still doesn't reflect necessarily on the economy and the lives of the people.
Absolutely. I just have only one statement. Growth does not automatically translate to development. Now we're saying because South Africa has gone into recession, then Nigeria is the biggest economy. The biggest is just in potential. But has that potential been properly and fully harnessed? That's the question.
All right, so your pick, NSCDC boss in isolation?
Well, I've mentioned it briefly, but it's just to say that we still have people who lead by example. He just returned from China, I think 9 days ago, for one of the meetings about this called COVID-19. And what's it called?
Doing the right thing.
Yes, the agreement at the meeting he went for was if you've been to China, you need to go into isolation and test. Yeah, they said he's been tested, he's tested negative, but he still has to go into isolation. Yeah, because it takes 14 days for sometimes to manifest. And those are the kind of things that we should be doing now. Not sending panic messages or sending panic body languages like the National Assembly are doing to the people. So then on the discourse, rejecting 17,657 megawatts as power outage persists. Yeah, I think for the discourse, they don't have the capacity to distribute. If we generate this amount, they don't have the capacity to distribute. So they are ultimately going to reject it. So what I'm saying, my opinion is, the power sector needs to be fully decentralized. It needs to be fully decentralized from generation to transmission to distribution. Let other people make it attractive to investors who will come in and do the right thing.
All right, we'll take a look at the Vanguard now. The big one, still on coronavirus, and the isolation of NCDC boss is on the front page of the paper. A couple of writers to that story. We insisted he must undergo 14 days self-quarantine. That's a health minister speaking. And then at the top of the paper, oil prices shake off COVID-19 jitters, rise 2.4%. You find details on page 44 of the paper. Imo APC jubilate as Supreme Court dashes Ihedioha's hopes, declines to sack Uzodimma. Details on page 15. Court shouldn't impose candidates on voters. That's the national chairman of the All Progressive Congress, Oshomole, talking. Go read details on page 42 of the paper. Maritime, we have something here. Smuggling insecurity rise at private jetties. That's another one on the front page of the paper. At NSE's court-ordered EGM, that's the people there, the money people. Okay, a Moteku bill is also on the front page, the fact that it has been passed by some states. And then the new one that we haven't seen in the other front pages, or probably we missed it, is this one that says, Kaduna killings, one too many, ACF, as gunmen killed 2, injures others in Kano State. Oyo lawmakers passed a Moteku bill, that's in pictures. On the back page of the Vanguard Sports, we have the sports. On the back page, we have Vanguard Sports. All right, let me take you up on the Kaduna killings. And now we hear 2 more have been killed in Kano State. Your thoughts?
Well, I think, like you said, like the headline says, it's one too many. And then I think this insecurity is getting to a level now that is becoming unbearable. And I hope we don't get to this stage where the people will take their own destiny in their own hands. Because I think it was Kaduna State at a point that the governor or someone, I think it was the governor or the commissioner, were saying they're willing to give money to the bandits at a point. Not this recent one.
Yeah.
So if you do that, that means you're giving people the ammunition to keep doing what they're doing. So I think we need to come down heavy on anyone that is caught with banditry, killing. So they should be punished.
All right. Court shouldn't impose candidate on voters. That's Oshomole. Is that a bit missed?
When I read that, what came to my mind is, you see, APC and PDP, my stand is they're the same. They're just playing games with the minds of Nigerians. I tell you, what came to my mind is they have used Bielsa to trade Imo, or they've used Imo to trade Bielsa.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But why would you say that?
Because PDP has always ruled in Bielsa State. And the last 8 years, it was APC in Imo State. And then it was about, PDP was almost claiming the 2 states. Because
well, if you're saying that, you're also saying that the people...
I'm just saying that's just on the surface.
Okay.
But the truth is that I like what is said on this day now, You're going to This Day now.
Yes, we're going to This Day newspaper. We have the Supreme Court asserts its supremacy, reaffirms Ihedio has ouster. PDP kicks Shomole Uzodinma hail verdict. APC calls for urgent electoral judicial reforms. NBA urges NJC to reject Cross Rivers acting CJ. FBI endorsement for EFCC. That's another one on the front page. Just below the This Day masthead, you're looking at returning from China. Disease control boss goes into self-isolation. That story has been recapped in all the papers. NSE members, OK exchange as profit-making limited liability entity. And then Southwest State passed a Moteku bill into law. On the back page, the fake news virus. That's another one. We do know that with the coronavirus, there's been some really weird information being passed on how you can, protect yourself from the virus. We had a credible news source unintentionally, I think, passing on a fake story of the driver that was supposed to have driven the Italian. So I'm sure this is a good perspective for us to take a look at. It's written by Kayode Komolafe, and it's talking about the fake news virus. Justice Ikpeme's fate, if you want to go take a look at that. Over to you now.
Well, I'm going to speak on what APC calls for urgent electoral judicial reforms. In my language, they say by Ilaro. That means it's now that it's their own money. So it's now they're beginning to realize that we need a judicial reform and an electoral reform. Even the Constitution, all these institutions have become dead, not working. It has become one-man show. It's become persons. So we need. That's why some quarters have been calling for restructuring the country, because a lot of people do not understand. They don't understand what restructuring is. Restructuring is to look at who we are now and all these institutions, how they affect the present happenings. And so these are things that needed to be done. The judiciary needs to be independent, and we do not need to go and get our elected officers from the court. It's no longer democracy if the court is what is deciding who rules, who becomes this or that.
Before I let you go, your quick thoughts on the Amotekun bill that's now become law in a couple of states.
I think it's only one state that is left that has not passed it. I think it's only Ekiti State that they're waiting on. All the remaining other 5 have passed it.
A good thing for you?
Well, yes. In the face of insecurity in the country, I think it's the way to go. Even though they messed it up at the beginning, but they corrected it, and then I hope their operations will be better than we expect.
Thank you very much for coming on the program.
You're welcome.
And thank you for watching. Do have a lovely day ahead. My name is Felicity Esewike.
A cultural movement that became popular in the 1980s and 1990s, and also referred to as in the United States of America, when Sugar Hill's gang song Rapper's Delight was released on an independent African-American owned label, Sugar Hill. The influential rap pioneers around Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and the late controversial rapper Tupac Shakur. In the hip-hop world, lines will be crossed, words will be exchanged, rappers in Nigeria, but the question is it real rivalry or just publicity for clout? The most recent being MI and Vector, but let's take it back. Way back memory lane in 2005, Rugged Man Relata responded with Chocolate Boys for listening. Vector and Reminisce. Vector dissed Reminisce in the song Gefi. This resulted in subtle call out after call out. On Mattel Cypher 2, Purification, MI Abaga threw shade at Vector, claiming to be the king of rap in Nigeria. Vector responded to MI's invitation with the purge, and it got people talking on social media. The beef was apparent, and MI announced an EP, and Vector replied with tetracycline, asking MI to a rap battle. MI released the Viper, last addressing Vector, and Vector replied with Judas the Rat. There have been 4 tracks released in this beef. That's Vector's Purge, then Tetracycline. MI came out with the Viper, then Vector finally came out with Judas the Rat. We spoke to some veterans and Nigerian hip-hop artists, and of course the fans, if they think beef is part of the hip-hop culture. And here are some of the reactions we got.
The hip-hop culture is, hip-hop is life. And definitely in life you get all sorts of things. You get love, you get hate, definitely you get beef. So to me, I look at it as I'm looking at a bigger picture. Beef is part of life. So definitely, the culture is life. So
you understand, like it's competition. It's like any other sport. It's like, athletics or football. People are always going to butt heads, and there's like in the El Clasico, there's always going to be like little bits of anger and stuff. But it's part of the culture, That's how it is.
Yeah, I think it's part of the hip hop culture, of course. It brings out the spark, the entertainment in it. Yes, definitely.
From beef, you get to see one of the best tracks.
Said on October 13, 2019, stating that grudges between Nigerian musicians is unhealthy for the music industry. It said being emotionally...
Country people, I greet you on top 0 o'clock. I'm started join us for news on the hour for Plus TV Africa. This is not the Torah Sama given my name, I promise. Nero. Esoga President Muhammadu Buhari say strong diplomatic worker with Hellenic Republic and Republic of Cuba could ginger Nigeria worker when say that they diversify the economy, improve global competition, and reposition the country to play plenty of bonga roles. For 1 year, inside Abuja on Tuesday, Femi Adesina when we say the President talk man. Isoga President Buhari talk this one when we say received letters of credence from the ambassador of Hellenic Republic to Nigeria, Loanis Plotas, for inside the presidential villa, Abuja. The Nigeria guy at the top, he say the long-standing diplomatic and business relation with the country, it go make them strong for waiting the 2 countries will get. And he constantly say plenty global challenge them go need every, may they put heads together for lasting solutions. For here, the ambassador say business worker between Nigeria and Hellenic Republic, when we say they stick up Greece, he don't tell especially the flour mills when we say employ about 50,000 Nigerian people for some point inside the country history. As they receive the letters of credence of the ambassador of the Cuba to Nigeria, Clara Margarita Polido Escandel, Oga President Buhari say make waiting resemble for the culture between both countries serve as force to work together, especially for trade. The Supreme Court don't throw away the applicant of People's Democratic Party Emeka Ihedioha when they say he want. May they reason the Apex Court January the 14th judgment when that they say not being win and call order one certificate of return to Senator Hope Uzodinma of the All Progressive Congress APC. 6 of the justices them when they say they sit down for the panel say make wait till the Apex Court when Justice Tanko Mohammed sit down as Oga talk stand. Why Justice Chima Nweze inaugurate? Our talk person Amadou Ye.
The case had generated tension as no election dispute resolved by the Supreme Court of Nigeria had been set aside by the Apex Court in the past. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, had revealed that a 7-man panel of Supreme Court justices, led by Justice Tanko Muhammad, had been misled by the All Progressives Congress, APC, and so the judgment should be reversed. However, after several weeks of bickering by both political parties and postponement by the Supreme Court, the Apex Court finally made its decision known.
So Today, Supreme Court has affirmed its decision that Hope Uzodinma was legitimately elected the governor of Imo State. It has refused the application to set aside its judgment as an abuse of court process. We want to appreciate the Supreme Court, and we also want to appreciate our colleagues on the other side. This is essence of having a court. Instead of resorting to violence or self-help, they have come before the court.
The Supreme Court 6-1 dismissed the application on the ground that it lacks merit, that the Supreme Court does not have the jurisdiction to review its judgment or set aside its judgment, unless on certain exceptional grounds, which none of those grounds was playing out in that case.
Counsels involved in the case say it was clear that the Supreme Court displayed the highest form of independence, as the judgment by the 7-man panel had 1 out of 7, Justice Chima Nweze, recant on his earlier decision and take the side of the PDP.
The fundamental issue is that it shows the independence of each justice of the Supreme Court in determining issues before them. One of the justices dissented. So as far as he is concerned, he found that the decision ought to have been set aside, and he set it aside. What is then the implication of his decision? The implication of the decision is that he expressed his opinion, but then the majority carried the day. In other words, the authority for whatever it is now is the decision of the 6 justices that will not be the authority for subsequent application that will come.
Some believe that with the new judgment, the case has finally been resolved, and there is no hope for further appeal.
The court has spoken twice that Uzodinma is the governor of Imo State. I want to appeal to everybody to go back and work with him. The Supreme Court will not speak a third time on this matter.
If any other person brings any application similar to this, we rely on the decision just delivered today to be an authority for us to ask the court not to the majority. So that's the issue.
Many say justice should not only be done, but to be seen to be done. Now that the Supreme Court has served its own dose of justice, it is hoped that governance can now resume in Imo State. Amadil Uyu, Plus TV Africa.
Meanwhile, the National Chairman of the All Progressive Congress, APC, Adams Oshomole, he don't hear the judgment of the Supreme Court for the Imo State governorship election. The Chairman said the judgment of the Apex Court don't confirm the choice of the people of Imo State. He gave reporters on Tuesday just after the Supreme Court threw away the applicate of Emeka Ihedioha. The Senate on Tuesday passed for second reading for one bill to make the Armed Forces Service Commission stand. The legislation warned the proposed agency to say the president follow the Federal Character Commission principle for inside the appointment of service chiefs, and the law will still make it possible for Nigeria people when they say that they vex to fit sue the commission if they feel say they don't follow the principles of the service chief appointment. If both chambers pass enter law and they can carry and go meet the president, the ginger for due process for that kind of appointment will be thing of the past. The fear of the coronavirus spread for the country go up on Tuesday as the House of Representatives talk say make the National Assembly suspend plenary so that lawmakers no go get the disease. The House do the work as the Minister of Health, Dr. Saige Hanire. He talk say the Oga Patapata of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Dr. Chikwe Hekwazu, when we say just show back from China, a day for one place for 14 days, as we say in the due process. The federal government say they don't carry environmental health officers, go public place them like motor parks, markets, and schools to stop the spread of the disease on Tuesday. And the House of Representatives call for the suspension of the National Assembly plenary for 2 weeks, as they say, make them do screening of the management of the legislature and make them put sanitation devices for National Assembly complex for the period. Health officials inside Lagos State don't quarantine one Chinese national just after he showed the country with one Ethiopian airline plane. The commissioner for health for the state, Akin Abayomi, Chowedisi, and give reporters on Tuesday. They waka go meet the Chinese citizen for the Murtala Mohammed International Airport after they say he go through the screening for those when they say they enter the country. They carry him go to the Lagos State Isolation Center when they say they take the test him for the novel coronavirus, but they never talk the result of the test. The Ministry of Environment don't talk their commitment to contain the coronavirus, and the Minister of Environment, Muhammad Mahmoud, when we say the young give talk men inside Abuja said the ministry they're ready to carry environmental health officers to assist for the stop of the spread of the virus and help to know the high-risk areas. Mahmoud said the ministry put hand for better hygiene management and increase awareness for the benefit of hand washing as we say a containment measure to stop the spread of the virus.
The environment sector under the leadership of the Federal Minister of Environment will key into the COVID-19 containment strategy of the health sector. We shall deploy environmental health officers to coordinate essential strategies in identifying high-risk areas in Nigeria. Universal temperature monitoring, masking, and hand washing, in addition to mobilizing protocols, shall be prioritized in the environmental contingency plan. In the same vein, environmental decontamination and disinfection shall be undertaken in high-exposure areas with a view of killing the developed virus.
The Center for African Liberation and Socio-Economic Rights, CALSA, it does some accused for plenty party for the Northeast to benefit from the war against terrorism. The Oga Patapata of the center, Princess Ajibola, a young gift talk man inside Abuja, said the evidence when we say the ground, it shows say plenty of Bunga people from Northeast, the ginger to stop the war against terror. Ajibola, when we say they hate their military for the better work against the terrorists, he tell them, may they not give up. I mean, they put all this mind as they want to come out the nation from terrorist people's hand.
We wish to state that on numerous occasions, where researchers from CALSA were on the field conducting periodic reviews of the war against terrorism, it has encountered on numerous occasions top brass of the Nigerian army with the troops in the trenches, and worthy of mention is the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai. This is quite commendable, and an indication that indeed the leadership of the Nigerian army has matched words with actions in the fight against terrorism in Nigeria. It must be noted that it is indeed a statement of the fact that all hands must be on deck in pursuit of the defeat of the remnants of Boko Haram ISWA in Nigeria and especially in Northeast region. The Nigerian military must not also tolerate any act of sabotage from any quarters in the fight against terrorism in Nigeria, as multiple evidences suggests that some vested interest in Northeast Nigeria that have been benefiting from the Boko Haram ISWAP terrorist groups and their activities are hell-bent on seeing to the continuation of hostilities so they can continue to smile to the bank at the detriment of the generality of the people of not only Nigeria but especially the people of Northeast Nigeria.
The Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Osun, and Ondo House of Assembly later on Tuesday passed the Security Network Agency and Amotekun bill enter law. The bill not to unify the proposed law when be say it guide the security outfit Amotekun when the 6th Southwest Governor join body do. The Lagos State House of Assembly passed the bill after the Speaker Mudashiru Obasa and people when say they work with them, read them for the 3rd time. They passed the bill for Ogun when we say Governor Dakpo Abiodun do after 19 days. Inside Oyo State, the House of Assembly called on Governor Seyi Makinde to sign the bill enter law after they pass them. While for Osun State, they say the House of Assembly passed the bill after they amend some of the things for the bill. Inside Ondo, the House of Assembly passed the bill after the majority of Oga Jamiu Maito. He moved one motion when we say the Shemu House Committee on Security Ololade Begudu, it takes submit the document. All right, the news could continue after the chicken break. More than no go anywhere. The Ministry of Health confirmed for one Yanis for late Tuesday says Senegal recorded a 2nd case of COVID-19. Authorities say the patient now one French national when say showed DACA for 29th February from Paris. This case will be like the first one when we say the record on Monday when we say still be French national when we say it is still Senegal. But say fly from France enter Senegal. Nigeria are the only other sub-Saharan African country with one case when we say involve one Italian national when we say fly enter Lagos before enter another state. They don't put them inside one facility when we say the Lagos state government they run to look at well. All right, the next one, now foreign news. On to foreign, they say Joe Biden don't win 8 of the 14 states when they vote to pick one Democratic White House candidate for Super Tuesday. When say be Ogbonge rebound for his campaign. The before U.S. Vice President don't win in Massachusetts, Minnesota, Oklahoma, and Kansas, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia. But they position Bernie Sanders to win the biggest prize of the night, California and 3 other states. They lead the race to face Republican President Donald Trump for November. All right, the next one, our business news. On to business, they say oil price gain on Wednesday as OPEC sabi people recommend deep production to fight the slowing demand because of the coronavirus outbreak. U.S. crude oil future go up from 1.7% to $47.97, while international Brent oil futures gained from 1.5% to $52.64. Some Waka people for Bloomberg report say the Joint Technical Committee say they want more output reduction of 600,000 to 1 million barrels a day for the second quarter. According to Bloomberg, the news showed just before OPEC 13 members opened their regular twice yearly meeting later today, as they could do one special session on Friday with 10 producing allies led by Russia. Saudi Arabia, when they dominate the group, they try to push for one agreement to cut another 1 million barrels per day on top of the 2.1 million BPD when we say they don't already agree for December. Oga of Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency for the Energy Commission, Kofi Addo, don't say Ghana, they build their infrastructure as part of the ECOWAS Power Pool project. He talk of the project, Energy Interconnection, say go give one opportunity for ECOWAS member countries to trade among themselves for less cost. As it can, he say na road to put resources together to light up the West African subs region when they say a good for economic growth and human development. He constantly say the Power Pool project is based on comparative advantage when we say the economic ability to produce lower opportunity cost past trade partners own. Still ahead on the top plus of African news, now our round of entertainment and sport with a show back.
Far away in a foreign land, they have embarked on a new adventure. What challenges will they confront? What pleasures will they experience?
Is to be the best in this competition because I really want to show the African how beautiful they are. Amazing!
A brand new life with all possibilities. Nigerians in China on StarTimes.nkoa.
And on the entertainment, they say Taylor Swift enter in social media page to send prayers to those who say the Nashville tornadoes don't cause wahala give when say happen for the town early for the day. As the singer taken, she say her heart they with everybody inside Tennessee when we say the tornadoes don't affect. Swift when we say spend a small picking for the Nashville suburb Hendersonville. Now one of the plenty stars when we say send prayers to the people when we say that they stay in Nashville when the tornadoes affect when they be Reba McIntyre, Chania Twain, Brad Paisley, Dolly Parton, and Dex Bentley. 2 tornadoes happen for Nashville for early Tuesday morning as it scatter plenty house, business them, and place where we say they do party when the basement is joined too. Alright, now on of entertainment, the next one, for sport.
Is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria?
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
I actually moved back to Nigeria to open a bakery. This was my goal, and everything I did up till this point was in preparation for this. First of all, life was great because I moved in 2015 right before the recession, right? It was awesome. I was like, wow, there's so much money out here, man. The cost of overheads, power generation, water, you have to be your own local government. And there are no tax breaks. Many places where, where they realize the small business environment is difficult would offer some kind of tax breaks and incentives. We don't do that out here. We want you to come back. We want you to, to start businesses here, but we're not going to do anything to help you. All my experiences in the past have led me ultimately to where I am now.
And for sport, they say Confederation of African Football, CAF. They don't appoint their football commercial guy, Abdelmanim Bal, as the acting general secretary, as Mohad Alji resigned after FIFA commissioned one audit entered the running of African football ruling body. They confirmed Bal appointment after one emergency committee meeting when they do for the request of the joint body president Ahmad, and they expect him to continue as both acting secretary general and commercial guy until the next meeting of the CAF executive committee. British number 1 and number 2 seeded Johanna Konta is secure her first win of 2020 after a win before world number 1 and 4-time Grand Slam champion Kim Clijsters. When we say they play just her second match since he retired from tennis for the 2012 US Open for 1 hour 25 minutes for the Alberto GNP Seguros. Konta go play Germany Tatjana Maria for inside the second round when we say he passed Alberto Mexicano Texas champion Hetia Wastin for 3 whirling sets. All right, now for you go back break on top this very clock for news on the hour for Plus TV Africa. For better and plenty information, follow us at Plus TV Africa for Facebook, for Twitter, and for Instagram. And go make better sense when subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa. We will see the same and plenty of that to read them as time they go. My name na Promise Nero. And I thank Ramson that they join us on well done.
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
Our conversation on One today is with Dr. Charles Omole, a trainer and strategist to businesses and governments across Europe, Middle East and Africa.
To get into the reins of leadership, it won't be given to us. We've got to go and get it.
How do we begin to change the narrative when it comes to leadership in this country?
Well, that's a very excellent question. It is true there is a leadership crisis, but it's not just a Nigerian problem. It's an African problem. The trajectory of all African countries have largely been the same, which is downwards, in the last 30, 40 years. These are people who have not managed two people in their life, some of them, and they want to be president of a 200 million, for them to even have the audacity that, because the Constitution says you have the right to, doesn't mean you should.
Premieres this Friday at 12:30 p.m. with a repeat broadcast on Sunday at 9:30 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Today we are back again in the slum of Ajegunle, where we bring you incredible stories. First of all, when we hear about the slum, we think of places where people live in abject poverty, dirty areas, and people in deplorable condition. And for the most part, that's what the situation is everywhere in the world, in Africa and even in Nigeria. But today we're bringing you a story of this place. Here in the school, Morris International, where school fees are being paid with PET bottles, such as the ones I have in my hand.
We don't want any excuses for not paying your child's school fees. Your child must come to school. So we came up with this initiative. And these are plastic bottles that we've collected, and more will still come to the school. These are the plastic bottles. We collect cartons too, paper, cans, aluminium cans, carton, even pure water sachet. That's a bag of pure water sachet over there. So we exchange this for school fees because I want to see, I have the passion to see that these children learn well. We use British curriculum in the school. That is why it is called an international school. So we want these children in the slum that are less privileged, sort of, from low-income families, to enjoy education that the elites enjoy in the society too.
We are here today because we have a project we're running in partnership with the Morris International School, and that is the Recycle Space educational project. It's a project because it's something we want to do for the community, it's something we want to do for human lives. And the beauty about the Recycle project is the parents are involved, the environment is involved, the school is involved, the recycling firm is involved, and everyone has a way of trying to connect with the whole idea. And so for us, we kickstarted this project sometime last year because we came about a report that was, I think, released by the World Economic Forum that said in a few years time to come, in the ocean, you're going to find more plastics than fishes. And that means that we need to start thinking of what we can do with the plastics, something productive, so that we don't end up having more plastics in the ocean than the fishes. And also, we also came about a report that was conducted by UNICEF that said that Nigeria is currently #1 when it comes to the numbers of children that are out of school in the world. That figure is alarming.
Our school fees from play group to nursery 2 is 4,000 naira. Then our basic 1 to basic 6 is 5,000 naira. Termly.
So what are your thoughts on what you people are doing? The fact that you're collecting plastic bottles and sachets for school fees?
Looking at our streets today, it's very dirty and you see plastic waste everywhere. Then we think of, okay, why not we ask the parents to be part of it? Picking plastic, we call the ACI to pick it up and wait, talk about the kilo to pay their school fees.
Sometimes I go pick them, I will go sell, I will bring and call me and my mom will use and manage because things was hard. Things they very, very critical. Nobody, no helper, my myself, now only me and my mom. So they knock hand to hand to take. Even the children, papa self has since come like say they bother them say una pikin una this thing. I say okay, at least they say single mother they take care of him pikin. Anyhow, one fit take even anything one fit do, man take care of my pikin at least before uncle come bring the pay. And true when he bring the pay bottle, it was okay. I was very, very happy because he relieved me for some kind of things, many things. Thinking of my pikin school fees, I wonder, my pikin books, I wonder. He relieved me many things because uncle self through the pay bottle self, himself assist me. Picking the pay bottles, I will advise a lot of people. I will tell them say he pay because if he no pay me, I no go do am, which I still dey do until now.
Children of Morris International School knows about recycling well. Imagine if everybody is picking these things around them. We'll have less waste around, and this program is a sustainable program. So imagine this in the drainage to cause flooding. We've helped the earth, we've helped their environment. In fact, Mother Earth is happy with the school for what we are doing.
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
Hear the stories making the headlines.
The Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria.
I'm here at Yunus Bashorin Street where
the fire destroyed our transformer complete castle. The lowest level you can.
Plus TV Africa, the big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
That money we shoot every person that we know we can shoot. We don't let people die there.
You could have killed me for a long period of time.
Since that time why I carry gonorrhea. I first go hospital first, but it no go. Now I come make that mama. He just pulled it, he pointed and shot.
What is the soul of a man?
We
they suffer too much. They suffer too much.
Issues around the Nigerian police, we have to tackle it holistically.
Many thanks for joining us on the show today. This is Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. We bring you the best of analysis on stories breaking in the world of sports. Well, I've got Destiny Onoigboria and Okweoluwa Adebari on the show this morning. Later on, we'll be talking to a guest, and of course, we'll be speaking on things happening in the world of athletics and how we're planning to improve athletics and, of course, the athletes in Nigeria. Welcome to the show, guys.
Morning.
Good morning.
Well, first up, let's talk about the FA Cup where magic happens. 3 games were played last night, and Liverpool lost to Chelsea by 2-0. And looking at the other results, Reading lost 2-1 to Sheffield. That game actually went into extra time. So after extra time, Sheffield United won that one. And West Bromwich Albion lost to Newcastle United by 3-2. Now, focusing on the game between Liverpool and Chelsea, a young Irish Manchester United fan wrote a letter to Jurgen Klopp asking him and his Liverpool team to stop winning so many matches. And he was left shocked when the German manager sent him a letter back. And 10-year-old Darakoli from Code Dongle wrote to the Liverpool boss for a school assignment. He asked if it would be possible for Liverpool to lose some games so they would not win the league. And Klopp told reporters during a press conference on Friday he thought the letter was cheeky and felt compelled to send the little boy a response. I mean, ever since the boy sent a letter to Jurgen Klopp, it might be mythical or something, but of course, Liverpool, they've not been able to win any game. They lost to Atletico Madrid, lost to Watford, and lost to Chelsea, and they've not been able to score a goal in those 3 games.
You know, first off, I read Jurgen Klopp's response to him, and in his response, he told him that, you know what, my job is to make sure that we win every match, but it is inevitable that we do lose some matches in the future.
True.
And he didn't know that the future was
now.
Honestly, because looking at those losses, number one, very shocking losses, especially the one to Watford.
Yeah.
Now, looking at last night's one, you know what, I did not just see composure in the team. I believe big name players were not at their best. Virgil van Dijk was a shadow of himself. I wasn't just seeing any link between the midfield and the attack. I believe we saw a lot of individual gameplay going on. But nonetheless, kudos to the Chelsea team. They needed this victory so much more. This is one of the few titles that they can actually challenge for this season because as it looks, they're already out of the way of Champions League. And a top 4 finish is not yet secure for them. And Lampard is slowly getting his team back to where he expects them to be. So you know what, for Liverpool, I believe they need to rescue themselves in due time because their Champions League side with Atletico Madrid at Anfield is coming up very soon. And they need to seal up the Premier League, challenge for the Champions League and try and defend it honorably like they would as well.
Now, you talked about Chelsea losing out in the Champions League. Are you writing them off from going to the Allianz Arena to beat Bayern Munich?
Sorry to say, but I feel like they don't have what it takes actually to
beat Bayern.
Honestly, because that Bayern team is red hot and they are simply informed. Even without Robert Lewandowski, who would not be available for the match, they've got good options. Thomas Muller can be a good makeshift striker. He's a deadly finisher as well. They could play false 9 with Gnabry up front, and you can have Coutinho go on the wings and bolster up the midfield. So they've got so many options. So definitely, I don't see a Chelsea win at all.
Doesn't see a Chelsea win. Now, coming back to the Chelsea-Liverpool game, would you blame it on fatigue, Destiny? Would you blame it on fatigue on Liverpool players? Because Jurgen Klopp complained sometime in December of the fixture pile-up from the English Premier League to the FA Cup to the Carabao Cup to the Champions League to the Super Cup. A whole lot of matches for these teams to play. So would you say it was more like what's it called, fatigue on the players yesterday?
Well, you can actually look at it from 2 different perspectives. One of them could be that they were tired. But looking at the teams that played yesterday, it's I think it was actually rotated because Alisson was not on the goalpost. So normally, you know, when you play games and you say you are invincible, in the Premier League it is very, very different. And the last time this was done was 16 years ago when Arsenal won the league as the invincible teams, 2003, 2004. But this time around, it's a whole different ball game, especially in England. So I wouldn't say it's fatigue. And when this issue first started, we saw them against Atletico Madrid, against West Ham, Watford, and now Chelsea. It goes to show that even in the Premier League, when you say you have what it takes to be champions, to be world champions, to be Champions League champions, so along the way, you are going to fall by the wayside. And that was what happened to Chelsea yesterday. Against West Ham, they were lacking. Against Watford, of course, they used the complete squad against Watford. But when you are playing against a relegation team, there tends to be the force maybe coming from the other side, not from you anymore. So Liverpool, they actually did not dive into that force, and they just felt, well, since we have been winning before, this is just like a banana peel and we can do over. But unfortunately for them, it was not.
It was not. And we have more games that will be going down later today. Leicester City will be up against Birmingham City. Sheffield Wednesday will be up against Manchester City. Tottenham Hotspur against Norwich City. And Tottenham Hotspur under Jose Mourinho. He still doesn't have Harry Kane and Song Heung-min. But of course, he still wants to win this one and see how he can help Tottenham at least win some season. But how possible is it? Because we still have the likes of Manchester City, Chelsea, and of course Arsenal in the mix to win the FA Cup.
Manchester United.
And Manchester
I don't know why you
United,
keep skipping that club. Manchester United, please.
I mean, it's going to be difficult. This is what I love about the FA Cup. The FA Cup is as competitive as any other cup competition in Europe, across Europe. And yes, it is the oldest cup competition ever. So you know what? It's actually prestigious to these English clubs, and most of them try to pick up the FA Cup to add to the trophy collection, whether it's a double or a treble that they are going to pick up this season. And you know, Manchester City is already on the way. They already picked up the Carabao Cup last weekend. They'll be looking forward to a double, actually, since it seems like they're going to be losing out at the Premier League. And you know what, with the recent form that Real Madrid is in, with that fantastic victory against Barcelona, Real Madrid could easily turn the fixture around at the Etihad. So you know what, Manchester City need to do their best to actually win this trophy. I believe the pressure is on them to actually do this. And let's just see what happens, and we're hoping for more fantastic fixtures coming up in the FA Cup.
All right, some more fantastic fixtures coming up in the FA Cup. Who gets to win it? Well, we can't tell yet because the teams are still adjusting for the results. And moving over to the quarterfinals, we get to see the draws made, and we know who these teams will be facing, talking about oppositions in the next phase of the tournament. We have other competitions spread across Europe in the Copa del Rey. There's also the Coppa Italia, but of course, the game between Juventus and Milan have been postponed. We all know why, due to the outbreak of the coronavirus in Italy, but I just hope very soon we get to solve all the issues concerning the coronavirus. Then we can get our sports running smoothly yet again. Well, we'll be going on break, and when we'll come back, we'll be having a guest in the house. Thank you, Destiny and Okpe.
Thank you so much.
For having us this
All
morning.
right, we'll be right back after this break.
Welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways.
Coronavirus, it's a viral infection. And the new coronavirus that we're all talking about, novel coronavirus, it's part of a family of various coronaviruses that do exist.
If anybody is not prepared right now, I would say it's carelessness, because it is something we all knew was going to come.
Symptoms to look out for, the main ones are cough, high fever, and respiratory distress. That just means breathing difficulties.
I will say no country is prepared for coronavirus as it is.
Really? Prevention is key, and hand hygiene is key when we are talking about this.
Alcohol does not kill it. You just need to take a lot of water.
So
taking a lot of
hydrate
water,
your system.
Hydrate yourself.
There is no cure right now. The only thing that we have to help us right now, prevention.
Awesome.
Is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect am. If you no talk, dem go beat you. Na 2,500 they pay.
Welcome back to the show. Well, I've got Yomi Omogbeja right here on the show. He's the Vice President, Digital and Partnerships at Africa Sports Ventures Group. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, a whole lot has been going on in the world of sports, and I think we should start off with the outbreak of the coronavirus and how it's been affecting everything in general, from businesses to religion. Now, the sporting world is also suffering the effect of the coronavirus and everything happening in the world of sports. Now, the latest is the Italia Serie A. They postponed a couple of matches. The ones they're supposed to have today, the Juve-Milan game, has also been postponed due to the outbreak of the coronavirus. Now, what will be your take on the coronavirus and the huge effect it's having in the world of sports?
Well, the virus is affecting everything. You know, it's practically paralyzed the whole districts in China. So sports can be an exception. True. And also, you know that sports is a spectator sport. So it's highly at risk because the likelihood of meeting a lot of people, or of a lot of people gathering in one place and meeting people with the virus is very high.
Yeah, true.
So that's the problem with sport. And a lot of events have been cancelled already. In athletics, which is supposed to have this month, the World Indoor Championship in China has been cancelled. And the Olympics also are under threat now because it's barely 3 months.
To the Olympics.
And we still don't know what's going on. There are a lot of cases in Japan. And so the Japanese Olympic minister actually said they might postpone it, but the LOC itself are still saying it to go ahead with the IOC, so we'll wait and see.
Yeah, talking about them not postponing, because like you said, like you rightly mentioned, sports is a spectator sport where a whole lot of people come from different parts of the world. Are there measures you think can be put in place if we're still going to have the Olympics take place in June? What are the measures you think we should put in place to ensure that we will not have the outbreak, which I think is very slim if it does go on in June?
Well, I guess we do the same thing that we've been doing. I mean, the virus doesn't have a cure or a vaccine yet. So what we have right now is to follow the advice of the doctors. Wash your hands, cough, you cover your mouth when you're coughing, and then don't stay around someone coughing or get, into places where you could be infected, or wear a mask or something. That's about what everybody can do.
Very true. But I just hope that it doesn't continue to affect the world of sport. Let's just resolve this and get our sports running back and better. Well, let's go down and talk about what's happening with Africa Sports Ventures Group. Would you want to educate us more on what you do?
Okay. Well, I normally am the founder of Athletics Africa. So for 16 years now, I've been running the largest website for athletics in Africa.
Okay.
And so last year, I joined African Sports Ventures Group also. The aim basically is, at the core of it, is Pan-Africanism. So we wanted both Africans at home and diaspora to come together and build a sustainable sports industry in Africa. Basically, we want to look at how can we make money from our sport? How can we stop the brain drain in our sport? How can we stop losing athletes to other countries where there are better facilities or better, greener pastures, so to say?
Sure.
So the key for us is we've been in diaspora for a lot of years. What are the things we've learned there? What can we bring back to Africa in terms of best practices, in terms of ideas, in terms of culture and value that we can bring to the sport on the continent. So African Sports Ventures Group is a non-profit, is a for-profit sports solution and services company. So we are here to provide solution into sport. Okay. And last year we signed a memorandum of understanding, MOU with FASO, which is a governing body for sport, university sports in Africa. And they are also under the FISO, which is the World International University Sport Organization. So we are going to start next year what we call African Collegiate League, ACL. Okay. It's like the NCAA style championship for African university students. And we are starting with 32 universities at the launch. Okay. Basically, these universities are like the model that we're starting with. They are mostly old universities with a lot of alumni. They have a high number of students, and they are core universities in their countries. So we have 55 countries in Africa. We are aiming to at least half of that. So 32 universities cut across those 20 or so countries to start, and then we build on that. But basically what we wanted to do is to have a culture in the university where, one, we have a sports scholarships program with the ACL League. So all the students that are partaking in the league, which, by the way, we're starting with basketball and football first, are going to be on scholarship. So we want to give them everything they will get if, for instance, they decide to go to the University of Florida or University of Tennessee. So someone like Divino Duduru, for instance, if you have a program in place, he doesn't really need to go abroad. He can be in a university here and still have the same access. So we're bringing qualified coaches, trainers from all over the world here to work with them here. We're bringing each of the schools, we're trying to set up a campus for the sports people. So they have access to a gym in there, a physiologist, a psychologist, a physiotherapist, everything in there. And the idea is let them have everything here so that they can make the Olympic national team from here. And then the ACI provide a competition for them all year round to actually compete and get that best shape for the championship or to represent the national teams.
Now, let me stop you there and take you back. You talked about starting off with the universities now, and I know sometimes back then we used to have the Nuga Games. We still do, but it's not as rampant as it used to be way back. The National University Games. There's also the West African University Games and the Nigerian Polytechnic Games. And these games are supposed to be a way of discovering these athletes, helping them groom these talents, and helping them break into the national teams, and of course securing Olympic tickets and all that, which seems to have died down. And I also know that way back we used to have means of using sports in gaining admission into universities, and it stopped working. It stopped working because of the system. So wouldn't that be a huge challenge to you?
Well, it didn't actually stop working. The problem is the government stopped funding sports. They stopped realizing that most of the problem we have with youth respondents in Africa, crisis and conflict here, is because the youth in Africa are not gainfully engaged in other things. So if they have thought about that, they will spend more money engaging this youth rather than other things they use this money for. So for us, we will support all these events you just mentioned, Nuga. For instance, Nuga they're actually under FASO, and FASO is under FISO. So how do these athletes qualify to represent their universities in World Student Games organized by FISO? This year, FASO is actually organizing what they call it, I think it's the 10th African University Championship in Kenya this year. So all these events are there, but how many people within a university actually know about it? How many students in the university that want to do sports are able to do sports while still getting their master's or doctorate within that university? I remember when I was in UI, for instance, sometimes you have to make a special deal with the head of department. If not, you miss a year. If you go for Nuga Games and you miss your exams, the university, there's no recourse within the university for you to do that. So that's why we're negotiating with the universities first. How do they create a balance for these athletes so that the student athletes have not privileges, but a special condition that whatever it is, they can do their exams. And we're trying to organize this Super League during the time when the universities, after the exams ready, on break. So it's going to be a 3-4 weeks event for each sport, like that. And then, but then the athletes will be there throughout the year, training and using the facilities. And they will also be able to use scholarship in university to go to further their studies. But for us, the idea is we want to make sport profitable in Africa. So not only for the universities or for the athletes to actually qualify or develop, we also want the universities to gain. So we are working with partners, and that part of the reason why I'm here is to look for partners who can support us in different things. We want to build, in each of the universities that are partners, we want to build an indoor sport arena there that is reusable, that is scalable, and it can be used for every sport. So today it can be basketball court. Tomorrow you can change it over and become a volleyball court. So that way, when the students are not using it, we can use it for other purposes. And for us, the sponsors gain by sponsoring that, because also the students are able to learn through that. So the students are able to learn facilities management. They're able to learn different aspects of managing it and organizing such big events, which they can, when they graduate, they also already have work experience to take to the job market. So, which, if you look at it now in Nigeria, most of our facilities, like the National Stadium, are all badly managed. Why? Are we producing from our universities hands-on, a student with hands-on experience to manage these things? Do we have facility managers coming out of universities to do this? They are already experienced working with this. The last time Nigeria hosted any event was 2009 FIFA World Cup, isn't it? The people that volunteered for that program then, most of them are not at the age now. So we don't have this conveyor belt that is keeping us through learning process. In other countries, they have armies of volunteers. You know, you look at people who volunteer for London 2012. All of them were able to work a few years later in London 2017 World Athletic Championship. Then there's a World Indoor in 2018. So you have all these events, and you have people, a lot of students coming through the process and actually building a career in sports.
Very true. Now, let's talk about the bodies and federations in Nigeria. How much support are you getting from, say, for example, the Athletic Federation of Nigeria, probably the NFF and other federations when it comes to, and the NBBF as well, the Nigerian Basketball Federation, because you are looking at kicking off with basketball, and are you getting support from some of these federations?
Well, right now we're not working with people. We've not started working with people at country level. So the MBPF and NFF, we've not reached out to them. We are working with them at continental level. So first, we have this MOU with FASO. They control university sport in Africa. And for individual events, when we look for partners in terms of officiating and all that, we're going to look at the confederation, the confederation bodies. So for football, for instance, we'll be going to CAF. For athletics, we'll be going to CAA. And for basketball, we'll be looking at the African Basketball Federation. FIBA. Yeah, FIBA. So those are the organizations that we work with to provide us with all the technical assistance we need for the actual competition. And then, of course, through that, it will flow down to the national federations in every country. Because basically what we've noticed is in Africa, we have 55 countries, different challenging rules and regulations in those places. And dealing with people on such micro basis is quite difficult. So, but when we work with a global organization like CAF, for instance, for the football tournament, everything flows down from there. And we're able to be we're more effective that way. Because we're working with a core group of people who understand the vision, who understand the idea we brought, and what we want to get out of it. And we're looking at 10, 20 years that we can say, okay, we've laid down this foundation. The next generation can take it up from there. Because in the 60s and 70s, we have something similar. Most of the athletes that went to Olympics in 88, in 76, 88, and 92 from Nigeria were from the university.
Well, of course, we really do not have much time on our side to talk more on this, but it's something we should talk about and, of course, put our hands into to make sure that we get to grow sports in the country. And, of course, we'll keep supporting your brand. And look forward to making it work.
Thank you very much. We'll look up to that. Also, we'll look up to partnering with Plus TV Africa.
All right, probably we'll get to talk about that behind the scene. But of course, I'd like to thank you for coming up on the show today.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, I'm Udoka and Joe. Hope you enjoyed the package of today's show. Keep it locked down to Plus TV Africa because they give you the best when it comes to TV programming. Remember, you can reach us on our social media handles at Plus TV Africa on Twitter and on Instagram and on YouTube. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Plus TV Africa. And for you to get all the juicy stories, go to our website, www.plustv africa. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Hello and many thanks for joining us on News on the Hour on Plus TV Africa. Here are some of the stories making the headlines. My name is Felicity Ezewike. President Muhammadu Buhari says stronger diplomatic ties with Hellenic Republic and Republic of Cuba will bolster Nigeria's ongoing efforts at diversifying the economy, improving global competitiveness, and repositioning the country to play more leading roles. In a statement in Abuja on Tuesday, Femi Adesina, the president's spokesman, said President Buhari stated this when he received letters of credence from the ambassador of Hellenic Republic to Nigeria at the presidential villa. The Nigerian leader said the long-standing diplomatic and business relations with the country would be strengthened for mutual benefit, noting that most global challenges will need collective efforts for lasting solutions. In his remarks, the ambassador said business ties between Nigeria and Hellenic Republic, also known as Greece, has been long, particularly the flour mills that employed about 50,000 in Nigeria
had been set aside by the apex court in the